Good morning, this is Newsweb. Dennis Aseto. President William Ruto is expected to meet Democratic Republic of Congo President Felix Tshisekedi. Ruto is in the country for a one-day state visit. Ruto is visiting the country just a few days after the Kenyan army joined forces with other East African military in search of peace in eastern DRC. After the visit, President Ruto will head to South Korea for a 3-day visit. While in the country, he is expected to hold talks with President Yoon Suk Yeol. This as Ruto has continued to address the economic situation in the country. Speaking in Nairobi before traveling outside the country, Ruto asked the religious leaders to pray for him as he set strategies to increase the country's GDP. According to him, currently the government collects 2.1 trillion shillings, but that his government aims to double it to 4 trillion shillings. President Ruto has also said that they have reached an agreement with KRA and that he believes that this will be successful.
As a country, we must move our revenue collection from 14 to 25%, from 2.1 trillion to between 4 and 5 trillion. And I am trusting God for it. And I want you, and I am asking you to trust God with me for Kenya's revenues so that we can leave an inheritance for our children. Instead of the current situation, we run the risk of leaving debt for our children.
The head of state expressed the need for the national unity at a time when the nation is experiencing drought.
We have a food deficit situation in our country. We have laid out plans on how to grow enough food because it's our duty and responsibility as government. I need help with changing our environment. And I am asking you, and I'm really grateful that the preacher talked about our environment. I need help with our environment, and we have purpose to grow 15 billion trees.
And as EALA Umoja leader Winnie Odinga has accused President William Ruto of betraying Kenyans after authorizing the importation of genetically modified organisms into Kenya. In a communique, Winnie claimed that the decision was made without much deliberations with various parties and public participation. The opposition leader further accused President Ruto of being a puppet, working for foreign nations and giving the nod for the importation of GMO-infused foods, which will have severe implications to the nation's agriculture. He therefore demanded that President Ruto and the UDA regime should reverse their decision and engage in a robust debate on the matter. Now, tenants in a 5-story building in Ruiru town were forced to evacuate Sunday after the apartment developed cracks. Kiambu Governor Kimani Wamatangi led the operations, flanked by Kiambu County firefighters, after receiving reports from the National Construction Authority and the Ruiru OCPD that a house had developed cracks. The county boss, speaking in the aftermath of the 2 houses collapsed in Kirigiti and Ruaka that killed 7 people, said the Ruiru house was teetered after its columns cracked and was leaning on an adjacent house where residents has also been told to evacuate. And the National Transport and Safety Authority has said road accidents-related fatalities had risen to 4,103 as at November 17, surpassing fatalities reported in a similar period in 2021 when 3,947 deaths were documented. The fatalities recorded in slightly over 10 months were well on way to eclipse overall crash-related deaths in 2021 when Kenya documented 4,579 deaths. NTSA released the provisional statistics as Kenya joined celebrations to mark UN-recognized World Day of Remembrance for Road Traffic Victims. The authority's data indicated pedestrians accounted for the highest number of fatalities at 1,486. The second highest toll was registered among motorcyclists. And a notorious MAGA who was positively identified by several victims was arrested by police over the weekend. Dixon Gitonga Nyeri, who has been operating in Huruma and Kariobangi areas, was apprehended by police along the outer ring road after receiving a tip on his whereabouts. According to a statement from the National Police Service, a kitchen knife was recovered from Dixon upon search. He was then taken to a police cell awaiting arraignment. The arrest comes in the wake of a series of arrests by police authorities in a bid to tame the spiking crime cases that had infested the city. Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kindiki likewise declared an all-out war on gangs of murders and other violent crimes in Nairobi. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseta. Good morning.
SpiceFM, Nyeri. This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk.
When you're impeached, you're impeached. When you're sentenced, you're sentenced.
Madam Chief Justice.
Until the sentence is set aside.
Ukibeba vitu kwa roho utakufa. If you carry things in your heart, you will die.
You've had the luxury of living for 50 years and you cannot still explain yourself. Surely. Oh my God.
The reason for which you went to school and then gathered experience, that reason must be paid for.
All right.
Oh, okay.
This level.
Shape up or ship out.
Levels don't change.
No. It's about shipping up. You know my business partner here.
Shipping out.
Are we talking about the ship in the bathtub? Or
the ship man.
The Situation Room.
okay, so there's already built up traffic on many parts of these Nairobi streets. It's Monday morning. Starting out the week with a bang is what it looks like. We know that we'll see decreased levels of traffic this week, with schools closing towards the tail end of the week. But it looks all right coming off Langata Road today, as you're going to get towards the city centre in no time whatsoever if you're coming out of Langata. And that's for now. We don't know what will happen after 6:30, but now is the time to leave should you want to do so. Coming off of Jogger Road doesn't look so bad either. Landis Road is already packing up. In and outbound traffic is already doing the thing. Right about now. We're also seeing the rumblings of the same on the Thika Superhighway, likely to get crazy as we go towards 7 o'clock. Coming off of Mombasa Road, not too bad, at least not for now. We will see that action going towards Outer Ring and then into the city from round back. All right, let's see what pans out to be this Monday. Let's talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Keep things moving this morning. Happy Monday, won't you have one?
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
Good morning. How are you doing? Welcome to Monday. It's 9 minutes after 6 a.m. on this 21st day of November 2022. Ndu,
yeah.
How was your weekend?
It was all right.
Mungu libariki wewe. Good.
Always.
Good. What did you do that you didn't do the previous weekend?
Wait a minute. Let me do a rewind. Huh. Can't remember really.
Nothing different?
Oh, really? No, not really. It was just one of those chill we see kind of weekends.
Those ones. We know those ones. Those ones.
I cut my hair. That's one thing that I did.
You cut your hair.
I did. I got a haircut.
Okay. So this has been cut.
Yeah.
Like not removing braids, it's cutting hair.
I took the braids out and then I cut the hair so that it now,
Okay.
I took about 2 inches off.
Yeah. City, do you notice?
I did.
You did, huh?
I did notice.
That she cut her hair.
She had even announced last week that she was going to do precisely that. The deed had been foretold. Yes. So
I noticed that she has removed the braids, but the issue of cutting the hair, I wouldn't tell.
So it means you haven't seen the hair when it's been let loose. There's usually plenty of it.
There's a lot of it usually. So I need to tame. I needed to tame the mane.
You've seen it?
I've seen it once or twice, I think. Yes. You know how it is when they're en route to the salon.
Oh my goodness!
It's given a little freedom before it's put. The shackles are put on.
Before things are done.
No, I would. Eric said, just leave the hair alone. Don't do anything. So I've decided I won't do anything. I'll just be like this now
For an entire week and so on.
No, for like 6 months.
Good.
That, my friend.
Good.
Okay.
And you, City, how was your weekend?
My weekend was quiet.
It was you who inspired me to cut my hair. After you cut it.
When you looked at his hair and you're like,
hey,
Kumbe,
we can do things.
this thing can work.
So essentially, the haircut gave you motivation.
Exactly.
Okay. So I'm a motivational something.
You are CT.
Okay. Weekend was quiet.
She's a motivational seeker.
A recipient of motivation.
Yes.
But weekend was quiet. I was visited. I meant to let me give this thing correct context.
Here we go.
Because I have a friend of mine, a very old friend of mine. He's old in both senses of the word. He's my friend for a long time, but he's also not in his first youth. Okay.
Long in the tooth.
Yes, really long in the tooth. So we had an opportunity to meet. He had a funeral. Cousin had passed away, so he was in Nairobi. So we were doing a little catching up. And it was pleasant to catch up, to walk down memory lane. Yes.
Good.
You know, one of these things where somebody you've known for a long time, and then you recall, when you talk and then you recall, but this is a guy who actually enabled me to become a member of Mombasa Sports Club when I was barely 25. This is, yes, it was one of those things. Yes. My friend is called Tom Muchura. Thomas Collins Muchura.
Thomas Collins.
Thomas Collins.
Yes.
TC Muchura.
Right.
With CT Muga. All right.
Yes.
Mine was good as well. It was nice. It was quiet. Yes.
Fine.
Yes. All fine. All
How
good.
you doing?
All good. Everybody, let me tell you what we'll be discussing today. So at 7 a.m., we want to have a conversation about the East African Legislative Assembly, the power and influence of this particular assembly. And we'll be joined by somebody who is now going to be an MP of the East African Legislative Assembly for the second term, the Honorable Kennedy Musyoka Kalonzo, nominated by Wiper Political Party, elected with the highest number of votes last week by the National Assembly. He'll be here and he'll tell us first his experience working at EALA for the last 5 years, and then what he has noticed. What's the influence? What's the importance of this particular assembly? Right? Yeah. The other person who was also elected by members of parliament in Kenya, nominated by ODM, is Winnie Odinga. She will be here at 8 a.m. to talk about her agenda at the East African Legislative Assembly. This is like the first foray into proper politics that she's doing, into proper representation that she's doing. And so we want to hear her ideas. So you're going to EALA. So did you apply to ODM to join EALA? Why did you apply to ODM to join EALA? And why EALA? Why not any other seat? So that's the 8 a.m. conversation. At 9 o'clock, let's talk about this thing that's happening. Another building collapsed in Ruiru. Right? Well, it's cracking.
It's got cracks in it right
and people
now.
have been told in the nearby houses, please move out. What's happening? What is the issue with this building collapses, and basically is it poor infrastructure, poor workmanship? The person who's the chairman of the Association of Consulting Engineers of Kenya Engineer Patrick Simiu Wambulwa will be with us at 9 a.m. to answer these questions and to give us the way forward. So this and more this morning in the Situation Room. Let's begin where we always begin.
All right, let's look at COVID numbers. Excuse me. 87 in the last 24 hours. And so that from a sample size of 593, 101 recoveries, 0 recorded deaths. I think we've just seen 2 since the 7th wave of COVID in the country. 44 of those COVID cases are in Nairobi, followed by Nakuru with 9, Siaya with 6, Kiambu with 5, Kilifi with 4, Kericho with 4, Embu with 3, Garissa with 2, Lamu with 2, Mombasa with 2, and Kisumu, Kwale, Laikipia, Makueni, Meru, Migori with 1 each. All right. So Kenya's sample size and looking at that number then gives Kenya a positivity rate of over 12% is what we're looking at right now. Looking at this against global numbers of 643,139, 643,131,783. This is happening while other things are happening as are related to COVID. Let's look at Kenya. The court has extended orders barring proof of COVID vaccination test to get services. Remember this case that was filed by Joseph Ora. He obtained orders suspending direct from the Ministry of Health requiring proof of COVID-19 vaccine to be able to get services from government offices. The High Court suspended that and has now extended the orders of that suspension, requiring proof of COVID-19 vaccinations before getting in-person services. Justice Hedwig Ogundi extended the orders when the matter came before her last week. She allowed the application by lawyer Harrison Kinyanjui, who requested the judge to allow Justice Anthony Mrima, who has since been transferred to Kitale, to finalize the matter. So she said, no. The order is now extended. Go. You don't need your COVID vaccine to get in-person services from government offices. So carry on as you were. Beijing's biggest district urges residents to stay home as COVID-19 cases rise. Remember, we had been looking at Guangzhou a couple of days ago. Now this has spilled over into Beijing, the populous district. Have said that as they've seen COVID-19 cases rise, many businesses and schools will shut down in the area, shifting classes online. New cases held steady Sunday near April peaks as China battles outbreaks in cities across the country. And they're seeing that these numbers are increasing and the likelihood of more cities shutting down is high. That's what it looks like for COVID.
All right. We're doing like that. We're live streaming the show on Facebook and YouTube. And if you're online, we'd like you to tell us where you're tuned in from. Just tag us as well. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. We'll be doing our usual roll call shortly. First, we take a look at the weather forecast at 18 minutes after 6.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day. The adults in the room.
He's promiscuous or he's polygamous. We need to get over ourselves.
So I should always know the man that marries me, I know there'll be other women.
Yes.
The relationship you have with yourself is the foundation of the relationships you will have with other people.
Things that we never talk about. 3 things. Stop, breathe, and relax.
Whether it is matters of the heart, finances, or work that's weighing on your mind, worry not.
Tune in to Adults in the Room
every Monday to Friday from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m.
The Adults in the Room will help you stay winning. Only on 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, so we're looking at cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning. Highs of 24 and lows of 16. It's mostly cloudy at 15 in Nakuru, highs of 25, and we'll see highs of 24 in a cloudy Nyeri at 14. 13 and clear in Eldoret, highs of 24 and lows of 13, and mostly clear conditions for a change in Mombasa at 25. We'll go to highs of 31 and lows of 24. All right, looking into Malindi, it's clear at 26, highs of 31 and lows of 25, and it's mostly clear this morning in Kisumu, highs of 27. We'll see highs of 26 and a clear Kakamega at 17. Looking into Kampala, it's clear at 19, highs of 25 and lows of 17. And Dar es Salaam is cloudy at 26, going to highs of 31. Mostly clear conditions at 12 this morning in Johannesburg, highs of 24 and lows of 12, and it's mostly clear in Lagos at 27, highs of 32 and lows of 26. Rain showers in Kinshasa at 23 with highs of 30. They'll come back down to lows of 23. It's 11 degrees and sunny going into afternoon Monday in Beijing. We'll see highs of just that. It's going to drop to lows of 1. Mostly cloudy in Paris at 7 as temperatures drop, highs of 9 and lows of 5. And we're looking into London where it's clear at 6, highs of 9 and lows of 4. Winter's setting in early in New York. It's already 0. It's clear Sunday night. There'll be highs of 3 and lows of -2.
Chilled Spice. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
21 after 6.
Everybody's online this morning. Good morning, great team, says Chepseron. Good morning to you. Kungoro says, a very good morning to everyone above ground. Indeed, give thanks to God for being above ground. It is a blessing. For sure, for sure. Helen Jogona says, good morning. Tuned in from Githima Munyu. Good morning to you. Betty says, good morning. Listening in from Nyeri. And very nice. Tuned in from Eldoret. Robert says, good morning. Tuning from Colorado Springs in Colorado. Zachary Ondio, good morning, Spice. Tuning from Kakamega. So glad to join the best morning show. Karibu, welcome. Good morning, peeps. Another beautiful day. Tietia says, good morning. Have a splendid day, and to you as well. Robert sang, sorry, I've seen that already. Simon Udhiambo says, tuning from Magarini. And Morris says, good morning. Wishing all a fantastic month. Qatar faced the consequences yesterday.
Quince.
Oh. Okay. All right. Robert Bogo, student from Mombasa. Good morning. Before we kick off, watching your show before we kick off hours. All right. Bay, good morning. Tuned in from Machakos. Atiano says, good morning. Tuned in from Kisumu. Happy to be in the room. And that's where Claire Fasanam says he's tuned in from Kolwen in Nyakach sub-county. Good morning, Idewa Francis. Jane Kamuri, we see you. Benson Muma, good morning. Papa Meja is in as well. Quite a number of people. Kahari, we see you. Paul Ntayaya. Good morning from Narok East. Jamal Nanja Kululu tuned in as well. Good morning, Lagat Kipkirui. Good morning, gentlemen and gorgeous lady. Miss gorgeous. Tuned in from Eldoret. Gorgeous. Can I say it one more time?
One more time.
Gorgeous. All right. James Mulikimansi tuning in from Palm Resort in Yali, and Moses tuning in from Zimmerman. So many people online this morning. We can't say thank you enough, guys, for joining us this morning.
Everybody, welcome. City? Where to this time?
Western Sahara. Western Sahara, you see, I like to learn from not just my misdeeds or misadventures, but from perspectives which I, at the time of enacting, thought were prudent. And with the passage of time, learned that perhaps was not the case.
Oh, my God.
So you're talking about?
What are you saying?
I'm talking about giving details of a country, even as we start every proverb. I normally give it willy-nilly in the middle of the week.
Oh,
at the end of the
voila.
week.
So this time you'll give us at the beginning.
I am going to
Western
give you at the beginning.
Sahara, which is neighboring Eritrea.
No, it's not Eritrea.
Well done. I see what you were
Neighbors
trying to do.
Mauritania. And then there's like a sliver of a section of it that neighbors Algeria. Then there's Morocco on the other side. And then lower down on the left. You know, this is Western. Okay?
Western for real West.
For real Western. And then there's the Atlantic Ocean. What is the Atlantic Ocean? Now, remember when there was a Berlin conference in 1884, and the Europeans at that point in time decided that they were going to decide how to divide up Africa.
Yes.
Yangu, Yako.
One for
Yangu,
me, one for you.
Yako. Okay? The Spaniards got the Hiyako of that particular region. Yes. And this went on until 1975, when they actually managed to sort of like pull away. I will be telling you the story of this delightful country vis-a-vis the relationship it has with its neighbors.
Okay.
Its capital is called Laoyoune. Laoyoune. Okay. Lau?
Layone.
Layone.
Sounds Maasai.
Yes, it sounds like Maasai.
Masai word Layone.
Yes, there's a president.
Layone
And
is
that
an
gentleman's
uncircumcised
name
boy.
is Bahim Gali. Gali as in Ghali, not Gali as in Gali.
Okay.
Okay.
Bahim Gali.
Abbas.
Butrus Gali.
Yes, and he's been president since 2016. It is a problem of being born
In 1960 as well.
It's a
All
problem
right.
of being born in the previous century. You see, mentally I'm still 19. Now, you might find it interesting that this particular president doesn't have a term, presidency doesn't have a term limit.
Hence.
Just so that I can mention it.
Okay.
Right. Believe what you see and lay aside what you hear.
Oh, we hadn't had the probe yet. It's like, what is he on about now? It's like, oh, okay, the proverb.
Proverb. Proverb.
Believe what you see.
Set
and
aside.
Set aside
What you
what you hear. Believe what you see. Set aside what you hear.
Interesting proverb, but I have understood.
What we've seen. Okay, well, what have you understood?
That you don't always believe what you see.
That too.
Believe what you see. But set aside what you hear.
Yes. You were saying something, Eric. You were about to say something.
We saw that president called Gali in State House, Nairobi. And then we heard from State House,
Didn't
Nairobi,
we just hear?
a different story. Believe what you see.
Yes.
Set aside what you hear.
Yes, so we saw.
We saw. Yeah. All right, we'll take a look at the newspaper headlines. The Standard Insider is a subscription model of the Standard, allowing readers to access premium news content that cannot be found anywhere else through a small paid subscription fee. We're running a campaign called Bobea Monthly, where we want you to save 100 bob by subscribing for as little as 199 shillings per month. If you'd like that annual thing, you can actually get the annual subscription for 1,999, and you save up to 1,650 by doing the annual subscription. This is like saying one investment pays dividends all year round. All you need to do is to go to www.standardmedia.co.ke. Bobea Monthly. Standard Online. What's on the headlines?
On the front page of The Standard, Raila says Ruto is a puppet of Western forces. Opposition leader says foreign powers are rushing, or rather are pushing the president to import GMO foods regardless of the health risks involved. He says while other countries are banning the foods, the government is exposing Kenyans to harm. We're also seeing on the front page of The Standard that the Hustler Fund has been unpacked, and the task force, the working party for the CBC, is being told that they need to reduce parents' workload for CBC. On the front page of The Nation, there's a storm over GMOs. There's a storm. Did you know that? Azimio leader Raila Odinga once planned to import GM maize halted even as he challenges the government to make available scientific studies it relied on to lift the ban on genetically modified organisms, and asks legislators to lead the debate on the grave matter. Other things also happening. We've also seen that the World Cup started in Qatar. And COP21, the Conference of Parties, came to an end over Saturday, or rather on Saturday, after they were dragging out this last deal. There's no deal on emissions, but parties agreed to set up a loss and damage fund.
Right.
Interesting to see how that happens.
Back page
of The Nation. Teachers sue the TSC, as well as an insurance provider, over shoddy services. Shoddy. You want me to go into that?
Please.
All right. A group of teachers has dragged their employer and a health insurer to court for allegedly denying them access to qualified medical services, and now want the signing of a new medical insurance scheme halted. Remember when we had the back and forth from the working party about the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, as well as the Kenya National Union of Teachers, talking about their medical. One of the things we spoke about was their medical. Now, the simmering row over the largest medical insurance cover in the country ended up in court after several teachers were allegedly denied services following new directions to hospitals under the scheme. We also know that there is no scheme at the moment. It was kind of like we're doing you a favor, waiting for the government to add that is it 9 billion now or 6 million something? All right. The 12 teachers from the public schools within Nairobi County on Friday last week obtained orders by Employment and Labour Relations Court Judge Nzioki wa Makau to serve the TSC and Minet Kenya Insurance Brokers Limited with the suit application. He also ordered an inter-parties hearing. The story has disappeared. Voila. Hearing for Thursday this week. The teachers were challenging the decision by the TSC to award a 3-year medical insurance tender worth 35 billion shillings to Minet Kenya Insurance Brokers. They alleged that the tender was awarded before their opinions were sought, either through their trade union, the Kenya National Union of Teachers, or direct communication to them through their mobile phones. That did not happen. They have therefore sought an order from the ELBC to stop the implementation of a contract signed on the 1st of November between the TSC and Minet on grounds that teachers are not getting qualified medical services. The medical scheme has more than 346,000 teachers and over 800,000 beneficiaries. Beneficiaries come, of course, from spouses and dependents and such. As a consequence, Justice Wamakau certified the suit urgent and directed the teacher's lawyer, Paul Gitenge, to serve the TSC and Minet with the pleadings. He declined to grant any interim orders, as to do so would jeopardize the health of teachers countrywide. The teachers claim they have encountered problems with new directives by Minet, as teachers with broken or without functional mobile phones to receive a one-time PIN, which is an OTP, are being denied treatment at hospitals contracted by the insurer. Storm in a teacup or storm?
It's negotiation. It's a negotiations. It's 6:30. See, we take a look at the traffic, and then we look at other headlines in the papers.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
3, 2.
Everybody, welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Heri Latifa, Muga, Madam Du, nimesalamia wote sana.
Tumepokea salamu, asante sana.
Hapa Garissa today the weather is very good, only that baridi inatupeleka mbio sana.
Baridi ni degree ngapi hapo?
Hata sijui, lakini madam tunakauka sana.
If you want to follow the money trail, you've got to think like a thief to be able to catch that thief.
A slap from a friend is better than a kiss from an enemy.
Right, starting to move in most parts of the city this morning. No traffic coming out of Githunguri. What we're being told this morning as you get towards James Gishuru, that should be all right for now. And we're seeing that coming off Mombasa Road also looks pretty good. Off the Thika Superhighway, a little bit of traffic here and there. Today doesn't look like the day that there will be so much of it as you're coming into the city. So yay! Hopefully that's not premature celebration. We're also looking at Langata Road. It's looking pretty good for now. Coming off Outer Ring, then going towards the going north, it looks like it should be all right as well. Let's keep an eye on things, guys, and try to keep things moving as much as possible. SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
26 to 7.
94.4 Spice FM.
Those ones.
I have those ones. Yes, I even have Nairobian. So.
Near last week.
So I hate to bust your bubble.
Okay, I have the East African. Right. Let me start. Which one do you want me to start with?
The Star.
IBC4 petitions. Tough road ahead. Cherera, Masit, Wanderi, Nyangaya have date with MP starting Thursday, as in this Thursday. But that particular matter isn't only there. Find it in the Nation, go to the Standard. You'll find it also in the Standard, but not as a headline.
Okay.
Right? It's on page 4 and 5. Then, remember there was a time, there was a young lady who had passed away in Lebanon. And there was the issue of her body. She fell ill, injured herself, where she did domestic work.
In Lebanon?
Yes, and she died. Her body is being brought back. The headline, body of Kenyan woman arrives home in Kisii from Lebanon.
Okay.
Okay.
Business Daily.
Business Daily. This one is interesting. Bill sets up KRA tax dragnet for cryptocurrency users. Taxation of the crypto exchanges and digital wallets proposed. Not quite there, but proposed. Crypto traders likely liable for income tax.
So they're going after them?
Well, they are, but this one is going to be tricky. This one is going to be very, very tricky.
Why?
Because one of the things that has made cryptocurrency attractive is the secrecy behind the trading and the opaqueness of the processes of Bitcoin. Now they want to say that they want to be able, but anyway, no. Can I withdraw the statement I just made?
Yes.
It will not be that tricky. This is Kenya.
After all, don't believe what you hear, believe what
you see.
Yeah, exactly. Then there's Parliament Budget Office doubts Ruto's first term plan. We'll talk about that more. It's interesting.
Parliamentary Budget Office.
Yep.
They've done analysis of Ruto's what?
First term plan.
First term plan.
Yes.
All these things.
All those things, and they're saying,
Kuna vile.
That's what they're saying.
Among those things of the plan by the president include pushing for the expansion of the tax base, which he says will be an antidote to the country's debt crisis. He was speaking at a church service yesterday where he urged the faithful to support Kenya Kwanza government's plans to raise revenue. The president said despite tax collection registering an improvement over the years, the country still has the potential to get more than 2 trillion shillings that the Kenya Revenue Authority collected in the financial year ending June. He says countries in the same category as Kenya have raised between 20 to 25% of their GDP from taxes. We must move our revenue collection from 14% to 25%. That is from 2.1 trillion shillings to between 4 trillion and 5 trillion shillings. The push for a broader tax base has been Ruto's rallying call ever since he took over power at a time that the country is facing acute drought, high cost of living, poor economy and high inflation. Barely a month after being sworn in as president, he gave the KRA a revenue collection target of 3 trillion by the end of the next financial year and to double it over the next 5 years.
The mention of trillions isn't really, should we say, strange. And it isn't something that's not attainable, especially when you consider. I was looking at this article in the Business Daily where mobile money agents have handled in the last 9 months 5.59 trillion Kenya shillings. So
Kenya what?
Shillings.
Okay.
What did you think I said?
5.9 trillion.
Yes.
In transactions.
Yes, 17% higher than at a previous time. So the trillions exist. How to tap them? Because the previous government in which the president was the deputy somehow believed in a principle that has never worked anywhere on the planet. That is, you tax the living daylights out of your people, then there's progress. Never happens. It doesn't happen. It can't happen.
It doesn't work.
No, it never does work. Money has to circulate. You tax it the way our taxation has, our tax authorities have been doing it. Yes, that's their job. But one, it not only limits the flow of money from the sense that people don't have and you're taking it, but even those who have will now keep it tight. If they were thinking of avoiding paying, they'll avoid it even more. Yes.
Yeah, so KRA has to raise 1 trillion shillings more this year. Okay.
And then triple Abihab, or is it double it?
Double it
in the next 5 years.
Yeah, we've got to get to 5 trillion shillings.
You know, we can.
By 2027. Raise 4 trillion shillings. What do you think our budget will be? You think it'll be less than 4 trillion?
No, it won't.
It's not possible.
If you're being told the targets, you're already being told what it is that they expect the budget to be. You know, money has to come from somewhere.
It must come from somewhere.
Yes, and usually to make money must be available. So what are the plans to make money available to people?
The president plans to plant 15 billion trees.
Okay.
Money grows on trees.
I was just about to say that, you know, it's the growing on the tree variety of money that clearly we are looking for.
This man nipped my comment in the bud. I was going to ask him what he talking about. Then he told me what he was talking about.
That's exactly what he's talking about. 15 billion trees.
Yes.
That's the way, man.
Raila is not happy?
No, please.
Why?
He's not the only one who's not happy. So let me combine this story for you.
Combine everybody.
Now, let's start from the MPs from maize-growing regions that are opposing these imports. Whether it's GMO, whether it's normal, whether it's what, they're saying, stop it. We don't like it. Legislators from maize-growing zones in the country, particularly the Rift Valley, want the government to immediately, not perhaps, halt importation of maize until it has mopped up the 2022 harvest, citing the interests of farmers. The elected leaders from the zones will be meeting Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mithika Linturi and his trade counterpart Moses Kuria to discuss the way forward on plans to import maize. So as far as they're concerned, this thing that you have said is not the thing. The way forward is what we are coming to discuss with you. This import is not going to happen. Nandi Senator Samson Shirarge, who is among those opposed to plans to import 10 million bags of maize to mitigate the current food crisis in the country, said the MPs from the region will do everything possible to bar the duty-free imports. He told Mr. Kuria to suspend the process until February to allow farmers to harvest their maize and sell it. The senator said farmers from the maize-growing parts of the Rift Valley are anticipating a bumper harvest. Hence, importation of the maize will flood local markets at their expense. So, they're saying it's clear. Allow us to harvest. Once we harvest, this thing that you're trying to mitigate will not be a problem. Because we're expecting that we are going to harvest in what? Bumper. Okay? It doesn't make sense that you will then now flood the market with this imported maize. It comes in almost zero rated. It's going to be cheap. How are we going to survive? And at the same time, there will be maize everywhere you look. Maize.
But will it bring the prices down?
They're saying you cannot do that at the expense of local farmers.
It's over the next how many months? 6 months. 6 months.
So they're saying wait until February. Allow us to harvest. We will
So between now and February, what happens?
That's the other side of the conversation, which we're not necessarily having. All right, but they're saying just give us 3 months. But
until February, we'll harvest and then there'll be maize.
So this problem that you're trying to mitigate by importing maize, essentially, we would have solved it because we're going to have more than we even anticipated with the anticipated bumper harvest. So they're coming to Nairobi today to discuss this thing. So please, for now, just hold it. These talks are happening while Raila is urging the same house to oppose GMOs and says the risks to Kenya's health and environment is high. He has said that the genetically modified organisms will not only have adverse effects on people's health, but also destroy the entire ecosystem. President Ruto's administration has authorized the duty-free importation of 10 million bags of genetically modified maize for at least 6 months. At a time, Mr. Odinga said farmers in Rift Valley are harvesting their maize. Do you see? Now the story is connecting.
All right.
He spoke at the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Foundation yesterday and accused President Ruto of being used by the development countries to harm the local environment when the science on GMO foods and farming is at best extremely controversial. We consider the decision to lift the ban on GMO foods and their importation a betrayal to our country. On this, the Ruto administration is not working for Kenya. He's being a puppet, working for the foreign nations and their multinationals against our interests as a nation. Ruto is not working to promote Kenyan research work in Kenyan universities, colleges and institutions. He is working to promote foreign biotechnology institutions abroad. So, look, there's many things he has said here. Number one, the farmers in Rift Valley are on the cusp of harvest, so allow them to harvest. Number two, there's a health risk to Kenyans. You are not considering this. And there's also a risk to Kenya's entire ecosystem, from agriculture to being able to then provide its own food. And then finally, this is not even you who is speaking. He's telling President Ruto, it is not you. Somebody, the puppet master is pulling the strings, and the puppet master is not domiciled here. You are allowing yourself to be used by Western nations, promote Western nation technology, and you are not protecting your people. No.
On the 3rd of August 2011, Raila Odinga was the Prime Minister of the Republic of Kenya. Reid, co-president. He used to have question time in Parliament on Wednesday afternoons. This matter of GMO was being discussed. It was a big issue in
Yes,
Parliament.
it was.
Raila went to Parliament and said, you know what, people, come on. The countries that have developed this GMO technology have actually gone through, have made sure that they've put in stringent conditions and checks before they approve the GMO. All right? Yeah. So if those countries have approved GMO, by the way, they have really checked that this thing is fine. Now, you cannot halt development of science just because you are afraid of things that you don't know about. There's no proven risk to GMO. This is what the Prime Minister was saying in Parliament then. Now, Kenyans are a peculiar lot. Kenyans went and dug up that whole clip. It is circulating on social media. Of Raila saying, come on, people, allow GMO, stop this fear of GMO. GMO has no health risk. Raila yesterday was saying GMO is a health hazard.
It's a hazard, not even a risk. It's a hazard.
It's a health hazard. We in Azimio la Umoja want to categorically state that this decision, which has been made without deliberation or public participation, will have far-reaching and catastrophic implications for Kenya's agriculture, the health of the Kenyan people, and our environment.
Now,
will the real Raila Odinga please stand up?
What did you hear and what did you see? That's that proverb today, by the way. Chapeau, City, because it's just in line with so many things.
Are people not allowed to change their minds?
And as you would often ask, what's the problem?
In 2011, GMO good. 2022, GMO bad.
What's the problem? Can I just paint a picture for you?
Paint it.
Now, a U.S. food agency. Now, think in your mind. Now, let me paint the picture. When you go to the village, you see the chicken in the farm. It's pecking there. Its children are following it, right? It's eating, it's growing, it lays eggs. Rooster does its thing. Another egg is, you see, happy chicken family. Okay. Now, and you sometimes now, Mother will now slaughter one you eat, isn't it?
Yes.
Now, a U.S. food agency has declared that a lab-grown chicken in the lab, petri dish things, is safe to eat. You want to compare with the one that's clucking about in the yard.
What's a lab-grown chicken?
Let me tell you. Yeah. Now, meat produced from lab-grown chicken cells could soon hit supermarket shelves after the United States Food and Drug Administration, FDA, declared it's safe for human consumption in the U.S. market. The meat product is made in steel tanks using cells harvested from live animals by the U.S. food technology firm Upside Foods. So the cell.
So they harvest the cell. From a chicken, a live chicken, and then they do what with the cell?
They then put it into what it mimics the environment through which the bird itself would grow, and it forms, you wouldn't get the feathers, okay? You wouldn't get the feathers and the feet and the claws and all of this. What you get is the meat, okay?
So the meat grows.
The meat grows as it would. So
without feeding.
Exactly. Okay, so you're not growing a full chicken, my friend. It's not going to come with the feathers and the beak. Do you understand? It's meat that they're looking for. But they take the cell and then they mimic it in this steel tank, and then it grows into a chunk of meat. It does not grow into a chicken. Please understand. So now what? Do you see now? So now what we're saying is that what appears then on your plate is chicken. You want the bone that you will suck everything out of. No, please. It's not going to happen. FDA said they cleared the product after carefully evaluating information submitted by the firm. It says the new development is part of its commitment to support innovation in food supply. Food made with cultured animal cells must meet the same stringent requirements, including safety requirements, as all other food regulated by the FDA. It is ready to work with additional firms developing cultured animal cell food to ensure their products are safe. So no bones, beaks, or feathers, but hey, it's the meat that matters.
You sure there are no bones, beaks, and feathers? You sure?
Yeah, it's the meat.
Okay. I don't eat feathers anyway.
No? So you're all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you go to the
After
supermarket.
all, it's chicken in the thing.
Yeah.
Boneless. When you buy chicken breast.
And that's what you want.
Everybody wants the breast.
Eat what you bought. Ni nini bwana, mnaleta mambo mengi hapa. City?
City wants the bone.
You know, this thing... is all good and well. Experimenting is all good and well. Seeking new frontiers is all good and well. Vegetables grown in a lab, meat grown in a lab. Okay. Right. And they're saying it's fit for consumption.
Yes.
It is as meat could be.
It meated. The meat met.
You know, in the US, there's like a problem that has arisen over time.
Okay.
And has had to do with pain medication that has certain ingredients in it that, should we say, our pharmaceutical product whose illicit use is meant to provide some sort of a intoxication.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Now, the over-the-counter usage of these drugs is actually prohibited. They are supposed to be drugs that are prescribed. Okay? But because the prescription, the usage of it, FDA-approved drugs, they have created a problem of profound proportions in the US. An epidemic because of the side effects of these particular drugs. I'm simply saying this, that even as we forge on to new frontiers, more and more, especially when we now foray into areas that nature has been in control of for the longest time, a lot of care and caution is necessary. Because yes, it is good now, but what about the side effects? That is really what about what will happen thereafter? So, I rest my case.
That's the risk with all development anyway.
With food, it's worse because food is something you consume on a daily basis. You don't have a choice. You have to eat if you can afford it. And even if you can't afford it, you have to find a way of eating. That's my problem. Drugs, I need to be sick for me to take drugs. Food, I have to eat on a daily basis. Now, I am aware that the scientific processes that organizations like FDA go through, believe me, they're stringent. There's no question about it. I'm simply saying, given human nature and given what it is, we have our limitations. It's caution. Remember, I've not said ban, I said caution.
How long do you want to extend that caution?
I need to read and understand how these cells and what have you became meat first.
Okay. Page 25 of the business section of the Standard. Mombasa Road set for a facelift and more footbridges. Damaged sections of Mombasa Road will now be repaired and additional footbridges erected along the highway, according to the Kenya National Highways Authority. Some of the damages are as a result of the construction of the 21-kilometer Nairobi expressway built on top of the busy highway. Kenha says the repair works will be finished before next month.
That is a lie.
The expressway, whose construction cost nearly 100 billion shillings, was one of President Uhuru's legacy mega projects. Its completion was expected to greatly ease traffic on Mombasa Road, one of the busiest roads. However, days after the opening of the toll road, complaints abound about the damage caused on the old road. Pedestrian walkways were also destroyed. Now, Kenha says the repair works under the responsibility of Moja will be completed before the end of this year, 2022. And Kenha will repair damages that were caused by relocation works, including water and sewer pipes relocation, power lines relocation, ICT fiber cables relocation works, which were carried out by the respective government utility companies. Blah, blah,
that's
blah.
That's a PR exercise.
That's what?
That's a PR exercise.
Moja Expressway has been working on repairing section that they destroyed.
And where exists
the section?
The section.
The section.
Okay.
By the end of December, that is in about 6 weeks' time. In 6 weeks' time, Moja Expressway will be done with repairs of Mombasa.
They say they've
Road.
started.
Oh my God.
Where exactly
Where
have they
started?
See these places? Haven't you seen? Outside here, there's a place where
I've seen absolutely nothing.
And then there outside, there's a place that
I have seen absolutely nothing.
These people who are digging up this place here at Imaradima, is that them?
Unless you're telling me that in keeping with that lab-produced meat, there's a lab where you produce
road. Then you bring it out, then you come and dump it.
And then those walkabout bridges that you put.
In 6 weeks' time,
stop it.
Moja Expressway will be done with repairing the patches of the places.
You know now.
The other major things that you're seeing are because Nairobi Water had to come and dig up their pipes.
You see CT and his merry band of gentlemen who are doubting Thomas's. I am now one of them.
What are you doubting?
I have joined.
That work has begun or work will be completed.
Which one?
Which one do you want?
Where?
I'm doubting all of them.
Eric,
which one do you want?
Why don't they tell us specifically? No. Look, there's a lot of wonderful work that Kenha has done. And when you travel around Nairobi and you travel around elsewhere, when you see road work that you hadn't seen before. But on this particular Mombasa Road, this one here, and my hand is traversing that particular road, okay? No. They've fed us tall tales for the longest time. The repair and the maintenance of that road was part of the budget. They didn't do it. As you said correctly the other day, they were given more money. They are now telling us that when we get to the end of December, when it comes to dates, Kenha cannot be relied on. They keep giving dates and then they shift. They give dates and then they shift.
The problem that the biggest mistake they make is putting dates.
They shouldn't.
By the end of December.
Who asked you to tell us by the end of December?
Don't tell us. Just say we are working on it. End of story.
Why?
Why
do you set yourself up like that? And anyway, this road has been in use for how long? When did the president launch it? In June.
In June.
Yes.
Okay. June.
Not the June
July,
that they originally
August,
set it
September,
up for.
October. We are in November. Why have this repair not taken place?
Eric, these things are
we are
supposed to be
still
in
working
tandem.
on. Yeah.
They're supposed to be in tandem. As the road is being built, all these auxiliary services they're talking about are supposed to be in place. Or are they telling us that when they designed that road, they didn't design all these things?
They did not know that
when they removed all the bus stops,
they didn't destroy the road.
They didn't know.
No.
They didn't know they're going to disrupt sewer lines.
No, they didn't.
They didn't know.
So this thing that they're digging here.
They're digging something.
They're digging something here, General. No, not even General. Ahead, just at the new mall at Imaradima. Those things that they're digging there. That one is.
Is it them?
That's what I'm asking. Because if they're saying that they've been working on the road, then we see that kind of movement. One would only assume that it is them. Okay, let's go further down the road then towards Syokimau. Then I can see that there's something like expansion happening. Is it them? We don't know if it's them.
The person who...
Then let's even go further down the road and there's something else that's going on. Is it them? Okay. Are they going to put bus stops?
No, return them. It's not putting. They existed.
And okay, so now let's say new road. Are they going to put? Those are the things that we're talking about. This is anyway. You have to kudos to them. Again, another chapeau for the morning. I'm already at 2. It's before 7 o'clock. Chapeau to their PR person who's made it look as though they're actually doing something fantastic.
No, that PR person is
man.
actually giving Kenha a bad name.
Oh, no, it's
because
really very bad.
What is it with dates? What is it with we have started? And
or do they think that it's extraterrestrial, that the people that they're actually telling this thing to don't reside here on Earth, and that will not actually see that this thing is not done?
No.
Do you see these children who are going to school come January 23rd? We will still be here.
They don't see these things. Okay. The people who work for Kenha don't see these things.
Don't see which things?
These things that you're talking about. They use the expressway. They go to Barbara Plaza at JKIA. That's the headquarters of Kenha. Get into office, remove jacket, hang the jacket wherever, sit down. There's a flask there with coffee, with tea, with drinking chocolate and things, and mandas. Open laptop, swivel around the chair,
solitaire,
and then go back home in the evening.
On the
expressway. Okay? These things that you're talking about, that's why, as far as they're concerned, we'll erect more footbridges, 5 footbridges. We'll sort out pedestrian walkways. We will sort them out.
What's wrong?
The
things that you hear. What is that proverb? The things that you hear and the things that you see. Almost, I have to shake your hand on the break because today
the proverb is right on. Keep it here for more conversations. Remember, subscribe to the Standard just by going on to www.standardmedia.co.ke and you will get this beautiful package, which is much cheaper. 199 bob. And you say what? 100 bob. Sasawa. In the next hour, we talk to Kennedy Kalonzo Musyoka, member of the East African Legislative Assembly. Let's call him MP-elect. He's yet to be sworn in for his second term. Good morning. It's 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. President William Ruto is expected to meet Democratic Republic of Congo President Felix Tshisekedi today. Ruto is in DRC for a one-day state visit. Ruto is visiting the country just a few days after the Kenyan army joined forces with other East African military in search of peace in eastern DRC. After the visit, President Ruto will head to South Korea for a three-day visit. While in the country, he is expected to hold talks with President Yoon Suk Yeol. Meanwhile, President William Ruto has continued to address issues surrounding the economic situation in the country. Speaking in Nairobi before traveling to DRC, Ruto asked religious leaders to pray for him as he sets strategies to increase the country's GDP. According to him, currently the government collects 2.1 trillion shillings, but that his government aims to double it to 4 trillion shillings. President Ruto has also said that they have reached an agreement with KRA and that he believes that this will be successful.
As a country, we must move our revenue collection from 14 to 25%, from 2.1 trillion to between 4 and 5 trillion. And I am trusting God for it. And I want you, and I am asking you to trust God with me for Kenya's revenues so that we can leave an inheritance for our children. Instead of the current situation, we run the risk of leaving debt for our children.
The head of state expressed the need for national unity at a time when the nation is experiencing drought.
We have a food deficit situation in our country. We have laid out plans on how to grow enough food because it's our duty and responsibility as government. I need help with changing our environment. And I am asking you, and I'm really grateful that the preacher talked about our environment. I need help with our environment, and we have purpose to grow 15 billion trees.
Now, Azimio Moja leader Raila Odinga has accused President William Ruto of betraying Kenyans after authorizing the importation of genetically modified organisms into Kenya. In a communique, Raila claimed that the decision was made without much deliberations with various parties and public participation. The opposition leader further accused President Ruto of being a puppet, working for foreign nations and giving the nod for the importation of GMO-infused foods, which will have severe implications to the nation's agriculture. He therefore demanded that President Ruto and the UDA regime should reverse their decision and engage in a robust debate on the matter. Now, the National Transport and Safety Authority has said road accidents-related fatalities had risen to 4,103 as at November 17th, surpassing fatalities reported in a similar period in 2021, when 3,947 deaths were documented. The fatalities recorded in slightly over 10 months were well on the way to eclipse overall crash-related deaths in 2021, when Kenya documented 4,579 deaths. NTSA released the provisional statistics as Kenya joined celebrations to mark UN-recognized World Day of Remembrance for Road Traffic Victims. The authorities' data indicated pedestrians accounted for the highest number of fatalities at 1,486. The second highest toll was registered among motorcyclists. And a notorious murderer who was positively identified by several victims was arrested by police over the weekend. Dixon Gitonga Nyeri, who has been operating in Huruma and Kariobangi areas, was apprehended by police along Outer Ring Road after receiving a tip on his whereabouts. According to a statement from the National Police Service, a kitchen knife was recovered from Dixon upon search. He was then taken to a police cell awaiting arraignment today. The arrest comes in the wake of a series of arrests by police authorities in a bid to tame the spiking crime cases that had infested the city. Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki likewise declared an all-out war on gangs of muggers and other violent crimes in Nairobi. Kindiki said the government was aware of the public outcry following reported cases of insecurity and was determined to act decisively to rid Nairobi and other towns of criminal gangs. Meanwhile, contingents of GSU officers have been deployed in different parts of the nation to tame the gangs. And on a developing story, reports indicate that the tenants of the 5-story buildings in Ruiru, the building rather, had collapsed today at around 4 a.m. We're following up on that story. We'll be bringing you the very latest in our subsequent news bulletin as we continue to gather information from ground. This is News Wire. Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
All right, doesn't look too bad. Let's take a look at the Thika Superhighway where jam starts all the way from that junction at Outer Ring. But you're going to move not too badly towards the city. There's nothing happening on Gong Road today. And then the question becomes, what's going on? Because there's no traffic. And folks are wondering, why am I in the city so quickly? There's no traffic. But there's Landis Road, which is crazy as you're going towards Kamkunji. And that is really, really slow. Okay, Mombasa Road, not quite sure what's going on. From between the Nation to Kappa, they're at a standstill. There may be an accident up ahead. If you have information about that, please do let us know, because it's not moving this morning. Very, very slow traffic for the first time in a long time on Mombasa Road. So likely that there's something amiss. Tell us what's going on where you are this morning. We're trying to keep things moving as much as we can. SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start
it's
your
7
day.
after 7. Good morning and welcome to the second hour of The Situation Room, Monday, 21st day of November, 2022. City, will you grab that Samsung Galaxy Tab S8 Ultra and give us a proverb from there?
You know, the interesting thing about this, let me put it this way. This tablet keeps fascinating me.
Okay.
The weight. There's very little of it. Okay.
How long do you have to wait?
No. It isn't the queuing process of waiting or the 9 months before a child is born kind of waiting. No. Not that one. It's weight as in weight loss, as in exercise.
Oh, weight.
As in diet.
Not weight.
No, not weight. It's weight. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay. You've got it?
I got it.
Which way you've got it?
Yes.
Weight. Okay, now. Right. Yeah. Believe in what you see. Lay aside what you hear.
Believe in
what you see. Lay aside
what you hear. This is from Western Sahara.
Yes.
Okay. And you've been telling us this, some few anecdotes about Western Sahara.
I will be talking about Western Sahara. I've spoken about the president. Yes.
The history of Western Sahara at the point when, after the Berlin Conference, it was given to the Spaniards.
Yes. And how the Spaniards ruled for some time.
And then
how the population of that country is 632,274. This is as of 19th November 2022.
Last week.
Yes, just so that you understand.
2 days
Nairobi
ago.
has more people.
No, Nairobi doesn't have more people. Nairobi has a multiplicity of people compared to them.
All right, you'll be giving us more details. Andrew Franklin is getting a bit agitated. He wants you to give all the stories at once.
I think Andrew Franklin is a lovely listener, and I like his comments. You know why? He gives credence to the one stylistic device called suspense. Okay? Yes. What's going to happen next? Why aren't you doing it now? Useful. If he has horses, he should hold them.
Tell us the guy died.
No.
Through 2 hours. Just tell us.
And he's in the ICU, recovers. No.
Then he gets out and gets hit by a bus.
Exactly. And then 5 years later, he dies. Just say, okay, he's in the ICU. 5 years from now, he died. That sort of thing. And where's the story?
We want to talk about the East African Legislative Assembly and the new MP-elect for EALA, the Honorable Kennedy Kalonzo. Kennedy Musyoka Kalonzo. That's the order of the names, right?
Yeah, correct.
Kennedy Musyoka Kalonzo is here. He has served as Member of Parliament in this Legislative Assembly for one term. He's been re-elected to go and represent Kenya for the second time. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Kenya's Biggest Conversation.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's good to have you here. Welcome to the hot seat of the Situation Room. Now, you, Kennedy, got the highest votes in the National Assembly last week. If you look at all the candidates, the 9 that were voted for, you got the highest number of votes. How many did you get?
262 in total from both houses.
Where? Yeah, that's the National Assembly and the Senate. Total 262. It's a high number. Easily the highest, right?
Well, not as high as last time, but given the current situation, I think a good result nonetheless.
Okay. What did you get in 2017?
I got
2017.
I got about 300 votes from both houses.
From both houses.
Yeah.
Do you know what that means if we had a parliamentary system?
Then you'd be Prime Minister.
You could be Prime Minister.
I'm not sure I'll be ready to put myself through that grueling exercise anytime soon.
Not anytime soon.
Yeah,
Kennedy, you were nominated by Wiper in 2017 and again by Wiper this year. And then you've gotten support of both houses of Parliament. Why did Wiper nominate you? Did you apply to Wiper?
Yes, I applied to Wiper, and it's a party. If you look at the achievements of its leadership, you'd realize it's a party with a strong regional interest, and they really care about integration of the EAC.
What role have you played in the party
wow.
to deserve their nod?
Actually, I'm glad you asked that question. I'd want to ask you guys a question of my own, but you don't have to tell me which particular party. But are any of you members of a political party?
No, I am not a member of any political party.
Neither am I. I'm not a paid-up member of any political party.
I am, but not in Kenya.
Anyway, the reason why I ask this is I always tell young people to join political parties, whatever parties they may feel aligned to. And, parties work like any other big business. You look for talent within before you look for it outside. So I think my journey in the party started in 2013. I was always on the campaign trail. There's very little I've not done when the party has called upon me. And even consultations because my first degree is in politics anyway, politics and IR. Yeah, so I do whatever the party needs of me.
So what is it that you've been doing? The question is very direct.
Okay, the party.
What do you think you've contributed to the party such that you deserve to be nominated, picked among everybody who's applied for Wiper's endorsement to be member of EALA? Why Kennedy Musyoka Kalonzo?
Well, the work of the party aside, I think one of the biggest contributions is they have seen the results I've achieved. I went to the East African Legislative Assembly. I was elected chair of the Accounts Committee, one of the youngest chairs, and I was elected by crossboard, from the House. And I've been able to, do a good job as the chair. In fact, hopefully if you guys come to Arusha in December, we'll be doing our final plenary and the final accounts report.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then maybe in answering that question a little bit further then would be, what was this good job as the chair? What are some things that you actually did do? And what is it that we can point and say, all right, this is the trend that the Assembly has been taking. This is the trajectory that it has taken on, and we can see that as a result of your participation.
I would say that definitely oversight. This parliament, the fourth EALA, really focused on oversight. And being the chair of the accounts committee, which is the equivalent of the PAC here, when we came in, our books were not that great, but with the support of the committee and the oversight of the whole house, we've been able to move from qualified reports to unqualified, and as well as clear the backlog of the audited reports that are not being laid before the house.
You know, when people hear about EALA, very many people have asked, what is this EALA all about? I mean, what's the significance of having the East African Legislative Assembly? You do representation, oversight, legislation. Were you oversighting? I mean, so if based from your own experience in the last 5 years, what is the importance of this assembly?
That is a very, well, I would say broad question to answer, because I think it's for Kenya. As Kenyans, maybe we don't take the assembly as seriously as we should. But for example, if you look at the committees in Kenya, ideally each ministry has a sectoral committee that would then be in charge of the oversight and what have you. But for East Africa, remember Kenya pays remittances to the EAC. There is need for oversight. Otherwise, how will taxpayers know where their money is being used? Of course, it's a regional making body. So the laws that are passed there, once assented to, supersede our local laws. So it's something that should be taken a lot more seriously, I think.
Essentially, you're saying that if you look at the East African community, let me rephrase my statement. Do I hear you to be saying that because we're working towards not just strengthening, we already have an East African community, but ensuring that all the details that would make it a functional body, that this parliament is a representative of that unity that we have, but also that beyond just a parliament, do I hear you to be saying that when you make laws, those laws will be applicable across all the countries that comprise the East African community? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that is correct.
Now, are we then saying that if I have a court case here and I'm unhappy with the Supreme Court, that I can actually take it to EALA, or I can take it to the East African Court of Justice?
Yeah, correct. That's the actual position.
Okay. Now, the third part of this question and the last part of this question. We have a problem enforcing judgments that are passed in the country. Terrible, horrible problem is judges say this, they're ignored, and nothing happens. Now, I'm thinking, given how broad the community is, and I'm thinking of the number of countries and their various laws, someone takes a matter to the East African Court and they say it's supposed to go this way, they pronounce a judgment. The thoughts around enforcement, what are the thoughts? Because you are the lawmakers.
Well, with regards to the court, maybe you should have started with it does not have as broad a mandate as some of us would like. In fact, as an assembly, we've always pushed for their autonomy. And that speaks to, the question you've raised. For example, if I'm a minister and I know the dues for the court are coming up, I may not be in a hurry, for example, to see that they are paid and I appear before them shortly after. So we don't have as wide as a wide enough
mandate.
Yeah.
This. That was the end of question 1A. Now, just the B part. This is I'm asking out of complete ignorance, but also with a little knowledge of the history of the East African community that existed then. We have members of parliament. Kenya has a ministry that deals with the community. But does the community have ministers?
Well, yes, it does have ministers, maybe too many, because then it depends on whatever issues being discussed would go through the sectoral minister and then through to the minister of the EAC. But in fact, those ministers are ex-officio members of the assembly. So sort of like what Kenya was before we changed the constitution, where the ministers would sit in the house. So yes, they are there.
So you begin by being an MP before you become a minister?
No. The ministers are appointed by the state, but they are sworn into the assembly.
And how many do you have?
So what are these ministers? The Minister for East Africa Cooperation or a different minister?
Well, ideally there should be a minister in charge of strictly EAC affairs, but some countries you'd find that is under Ministry of Foreign Affairs or something of the sort.
So the Minister for EAC is an ex-official member of the East African Legislative Assembly.
Yes.
So they actually even come for sittings.
Yeah, they do.
And they answer questions raised by members of the assembly.
Yes.
I see. Let me take you back into 2017. All right. 2018, you joined the East African Legislative Assembly. It's your first time going into an assembly. And you've gone to Arusha. You've been sworn in. You're now familiarizing yourself with this. What is your first impression of the assembly in terms of A, the work that they do, B, the understanding that you had prior to going to the assembly, and now you're experiencing the assembly?
Wow, I think it was I would say a huge culture shock. I'd never been to Arusha before, and in fact, the first two nights, I don't think I slept. I was just busy reading the rules because we had clear instructions. You must go first order of business, elect a speaker. There were those regional issues at the time that we were not, familiar with, that we had to learn quite quickly. But luckily for me, I was able to consult widely and got the right position. So it was an interesting experience. Yeah.
And then when you go in and the business now begins, you have a speaker, the assembly is starting to do its work. Did you have somebody like who's hand-holding you, telling you, this is what the assembly is all about, this is what we expect from you? Were you getting, say, memoranda from Kenya telling you, this is our position as a country, and as our representative in the assembly, this is what we'd like to push or pursue? Or did you go in there completely independent, think broadly from your own understanding?
I think it's a hybrid of the two. Of course, there are certain contentious issues that would need advice from for example, Kenya, in my case. But also, I should have mentioned as well that there are certain things we can't legislate on. So anything that touches on the exchequer, because that means now, as an assembly, we're interfering with the sovereignty of a particular state. So there are certain things we cannot legislate on. Yeah.
What was your impression or your thoughts about the assembly? Because I'm still coming back to the impact that is felt by nations and citizens of nations of the assembly. What was your impression of the assembly prior to your first term as a member?
Well, I thought it was, let's just say my expectations were different. I didn't imagine I would have to juggle so many different and sensitive issues. But I think our speaker did a good job of leading us through that transition period, because when we did come in, we were taken to court because of his election, but that was eventually resolved. At the same time, we couldn't sit in Burundi, I think it was, and then later there were some issues between Rwanda and Uganda. So again, we couldn't even sit in those countries. So I don't know if I've answered your question.
Okay, so maybe let me phrase that differently. Before you were a part of the assembly, had anything to do with it, an ordinary citizen like anybody else, did you feel or know of the impact of the work of the East African Legislative Assembly?
Maybe not in as great detail as I do now. Because, for example, we went to interact with we were in Muranga, I think, and we were talking to the farmers, and they're asking us, we sent you guys to this place, and all you're doing is bringing us, Ugandan milk and eggs. And it was really I struggle to explain that, look, this is probably a Kenyan from here who settled in Uganda, and because he knows the market, is selling it back to here. And I was given a question of the chicks. So Kenya apparently is very good in hatching, right? So, but when they go to Uganda, they are now good at the eggs production. So we get a lot of eggs from them. But the local Mwananchi does not understand that it's Ken who's gone to Uganda, settled there, and is, has seen where the gap is and is sending his produce back. So I would say I didn't know in much detail the impact until we actually started going around. Yeah.
Now,
sorry, go ahead. No, please.
Now that you're within those corridors, do you feel that more communication on the work that the Assembly does then needs to be shared with the people within the region for which it sits?
I think so, definitely. In fact, I had reached out to KBC not long ago. I was hoping they could come cover our sessions. I think, to be honest, it's really the Kenyan side that we're let down. But whenever we're sitting, I always see a representation from our partner states, be it NTV, Uganda, TBC. They're always there. Yeah, so I think more needs to be done on that.
Do you think the other countries take the EAC more seriously, the EAC assembly more seriously than we do? Like, do they have a better understanding? So you're based in Arusha.
Yeah.
Do Tanzanians understand the importance of that assembly that's in Arusha?
So much so. One of the quickest way to get in trouble with the Tanzanians is to try and question some of the equity provisions in our treaty, which says all partner states should benefit equally. So they do take it seriously. We are one of the biggest markets. Like, we get all our food, most of our food from TZ and Uganda.
Would you say it's the same thing for Ugandans as well? Their understanding of EALA and the importance of EALA? Yeah,
definitely. It's the same for them as well.
It's very interesting that you should say what you're saying, because one, if they take it more seriously, then it also means that, by extension, they would also understand the member states who don't take it as seriously as them. I'm going somewhere with that. Well, it's a postulation. Now, if I were to ask this, again, simplistic question, what would you say then is the overall benefit and what have been the achievements of EALA? You sit there, you've been there, benefits now, benefits in the midterm, benefits in the future. What do you see?
Wow. Well, I would start with the joining of DRC to the EAC. And with that, that's a population of what, I think just under 100 million? Over 100 million.
Close to 200 million.
And so that, is a market for all of us. That's number one. Number two, now, I may not be an economist, but my limited understanding of markets was, the bigger the market, the better off you are, because in that population, you have a bigger percentage of people who maybe can then afford your product. So if we look at the US, for example, it's called the United States of America. People forget that on average, per state, these are easily 50 million people plus. So they have a market of 300 million people. And then we think we'd have a fair deal if they were to, for example, trade with Kenya, as just Kenya of 54 million people. So I think the biggest benefit is the market. We're moving now towards a monetary union. We've just passed the 3 bills that will be the precursor to the central bank, and that should ease trade within ourselves.
You see, that's the East African community.
Yeah.
All right. The assembly then. What's the central role of the assembly in this East African community in advancing these ideals of the countries that have joined the East African community?
Well, it's the, as I said before, the oversight body, the legislative body. Like those bills I've just mentioned had to come to the House, be debated, and then general consensus reached, and then passed on to the council to I think when the summit meets, they'll assent. So I would say it's one component. It's in the EAC it's a unique parliament in that it's a parliament on its own, as opposed to, say, the Pan-African Parliament, where the members are already members of parliament to begin with. So for the EAC, we have the executive, which is the secretariat, then we have the judicial, the court, then we have the legislative, which is the assembly. So we play that role.
Let's take a break. It's 7:30. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, live on KTN Home, SpiceFM, online on YouTube and Facebook. Our guest this morning is the Honorable Kennedy Musyoka Kalonzo. He's been re-elected to the East African Legislative Assembly. He's served since 2017 when he first joined. And from him, we want to understand the power and influence of the East African Legislative Assembly. Keep it here for more. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Enjoy Black November with Cold Stone Creamery Kenya. Get 2 Gotta Have It cups and 2 cake slices at only 1,500 Kenya shillings. And other amazing deals for you and your friends this November. Visit any of our stores in Nairobi or Mombasa and enjoy creamy, smooth ice cream and deliciously crafted ice cream cakes. Ice cream is always a great idea.
Everyone remembers the ambition they first had when they started their business.
A business holds promise. An idea could blow up and change lives anywhere on the planet. But the best idea is not worth much if it can't be executed by a solid team. Introducing The Room, the talent solution that provides a global network of tech talent, relationships, and resources dedicated to drive growth and innovation in your business. Hire tech talent and pick from qualified software engineers, cloud developers, web developers, and data analysts, all vetted and trained to Silicon Valley standards. The way we work has changed, and subsequently, so should the way we hire. Visit theroom.com today and discover how we can improve your business.
Still looking at cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning, we will see highs of 26 and lows of 16. Looking out into a mostly cloudy Nakuru, we'll see highs of 25 and lows of 14. And we'll see highs of 24 in a cloudy Nyeri at 14. It's 13 and clear in Eldoret, highs of 24. And we'll see highs of 31 in a mostly clear Mombasa at 25. 31 is what it'll go to highs of in Malindi. It's 26 and clear. And mostly clear conditions at 19 in Kisumu, highs of 27 and lows of 19. We're looking at clear conditions at 17 in Kakamega, highs of 26 and lows of 15. Kampala's clear at 19, it'll go to highs of 25, while Dar es Salaam is cloudy at 26, we'll see highs of 31. 12 and mostly clear in Johannesburg, highs of 25 and lows of 12, and we'll see mostly clear conditions in Lagos at 27, going to highs of 32. 30 will be the high in Kinshasa. It's raining this morning at 23.
Sugar and spice and everything
Spice up your life.
All right, so looking at traffic, not too terrible of a situation this morning. No traffic on Langata Road. That looks pretty good. Kiambu Road is a mess. Folks are calling it the new normal, where you see many lanes trying to get into the city. Seems like there was an accident on Mombasa Road this morning, and that's why you have that clog up of traffic then between Nation and Kappa. So that's moving really slowly. We'll see then as you get past General Motors eventually that you'll be all right. Coming off of Thika Superhighway, traffic continues there. It's your normal Monday morning thing. As you get towards the city, then you should be all right. Kamkunji coming in from Landis is packed. We see that earlier. That started really early. I'll keep an eye on things and hopefully they don't get too sticky. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, talk to us there.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
90 minutes to 8. If you're stuck in traffic, pole sana, this happens. These things happen.
Don't worry.
Even though kuenda. The Honorable Kennedy Musyoka Kalonzo is our guest this morning, a member of the East African Legislative Assembly, and we're talking about the power and influence of the EALA. Mheshimiwa, when the East African community was re-established, the treaty talked about doing things in stages. So first, it was about getting a common market, then a monetary union, then eventually a political federation, where we all become one. Now, of course, there have been very many talks about the start-stops in this journey, even just getting into a East African common market and then getting into the monetary union. You're just saying that we just signed the monetary union documents just the other day. The East African Legislative Assembly has the mandate of shepherding the community towards these ideals. What is it that the Assembly has managed to do and not been able to do? And what are those challenges?
Well, I think one of the key mandates and what the Assembly does is to look at these issues of non-tariff barriers, where on paper it says, okay, we have a common market, but as they say, qua ground things are different. So what then the Assembly usually does is to go to some of these areas and really talk to the people and find out, what are the issues. I know we've been doing so well until the COVID thing, and then now we had to go back to, do we have standardized tests? Drivers were complaining and all this. But I think the different ministers of the EAC were able to eventually resolve it. But the non-tariff barrier is one issue that always comes up. Because if we're serious about integration, then at some point we have to really look at protectionism, which may come up in different partner states from time to time. So that has always been one very big challenge. The other big challenge, in my opinion, is the issue of consensus, where we're saying the ministers have to agree. Now, this made sense when there were 3 ministers initially, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania. But now we are 7. To be fair, to really ask them to agree on one particular issue is a big, big challenge, which always creates different bottlenecks, because if one doesn't agree, then there's no quorum, a decision can be made on that issue.
What is it that makes the ministers not agree? Is it because they clearly is an issue, or is it because the countries themselves, from their own leaders, don't actually see the whole point of this East African integration?
Well, there are a lot of moving pieces. So, of course, whenever there are issues between two heads of state, it impacts heavily on our work. I just gave the example where ideally we're supposed to sit in every partner state.
Yeah.
Like 3 weeks ago, we had the pleasure of President Kagame addressing us in Kigali, but we were only able to do that recently. We should be able to visit each partner state in each financial year, at least. Over the 5 years, we should have visited all the capitals.
What precluded that from happening?
There was a time when Uganda and Rwanda had their own issues, which were resolved.
So for them not seeing eye to eye, the issue between Uganda and Rwanda, it impacted on the work of the East African Legislative Assembly.
As a whole?
Yeah. It was very difficult for us to then, as an assembly, to go and sit in those countries and have the head of state address us in that environment.
But yet, the members, the presidents, were actually meeting at the summit. In those years that we're talking about, the EAC ministers met, the EAC presidents met in the EAC summits. But why would the assemblies not be able to meet with the presidents?
Well, it's good, number one, they're meeting, and whatever issues they have, we should always encourage them to meet. Without going into too many details, this assembly is also unique in that we are MPs, but we're also diplomats. So certain issues need more of a diplomatic approach than, say, a legislative one. But the work of the assembly still continued. We just weren't able to do that sitting has the advantage because it's part of sensitization. Whenever we sit in a partner state, there's interest. Who are these people?
People get to understand.
Yeah. Why is the president coming to talk to these people? That kind of thing.
And by the same token, if two countries are not getting along that particular week, and you happen to go to one country, the optics may acquire some should we say, meanings that you may not particularly like. So to avoid anything, you simply don't go. Yes, because when people disagree, everything about the other person now is bad. Even things previously which were good suddenly become bad. But now, first of all, Mheshimiwa, you are right about the population. I was thinking more in terms of the population of the East African community when it's one combined. You are right. The population is around 96 point something, going to 97
of
million.
DRC.
Yes, it is. The role of the East African community, yes, we've understood that. Talk a little bit about the power it actually has. We know it has the mandate to legislate, but I'm talking about the power. For instance, our parliament has committees where they can summon people. Okay? They have that power. The parliament in Kenya is a budget-making parliament. That role, we are told it's there, but whether it's actually there, anyway, different story. But what are the powers of the assembly at the East African community in Arusha?
Well, again, as I said, maybe not as strong as our local parliaments, but for example, now in my committee where I chair, I do have the power to call members of staff, including the Secretary General himself, because he's the head of the institution. So my committee has powers to summon him to explain, where we think things were not done correctly or there were issues. So we do have that power. Maybe not as strong as the local assembly because there are issues of sovereignty as well. So we don't have harmonized criminal or justice systems per se. So our hands are tied, especially on issues of sovereignty.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many committees are there in this particular parliament?
There are 6 committees.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, we do also have the power for budgeting. And that's also another issue that I have. When you asked about the challenges, because half our budget is dependent on donors. I don't believe...
Donors being non-member states of the East African community.
Yeah. NGOs, all this. But I don't believe donors will be able to finance you to deal with your problems how you'd want to finance them. They would finance based on their own interests.
Mheshimiwa, you mentioned something that I think is a bit of a thorn. AU has similar problems, but we're not discussing the AU, okay? Is that a bit of a compromise, having other people who are not your citizens and not your representative states funding you? Does it not put you in a position where pressure can be applied to you in ways that if you didn't have that money, it couldn't be applied?
Yeah, correct. And for us, we've been advocating for using the financing mechanism that the AU uses. Because again, as I keep saying, if we're serious about integration, there are certain hard decisions we'll have to make. One of them will be, okay, do we go for a different financing option that then allows us full control of how we manage our programs?
Looking at the work that, there are many bins that we play in here. There is Kenya's politics, how that plays out vis-a-vis the East African Legislative Assembly. There is the East African community. And then looking at you as an individual and where you step off of. And this is why some of the questions I asked before about trying to get an understanding of how you felt the Assembly is operating and the work and impact that it has, whether in the region or in the country. We cannot run away from the reality of who you are, who's your father, and the role that he plays in Kenya's politics. How will you make this work happen? We're looking at a second term now. How will you make this work happen? Not walking in the shoes of your father, which, whether we like it or not, a lot of people are going to ascribe your role to.
Well, it's an interesting question. So let me tackle the issue of going back for a second term. So, firstly, I have to thank the voters. It was a nice surprise. I thank the voters. I thank God. One of the challenges Kenya has had is they never have institutional memory. So every time it's a new team. The other countries, on the other hand, are always clear on who they're sending back. They must have at least maybe a third or very seasoned members. We've had ex-prime ministers, ex-ministers. So with regards to how I'm different, I suppose, is, someone can say, maybe I was lucky, I was entitled, but the results, when you're voted for by all these different people to lead them, I think is a vote of confidence and speaks to competence as well. So I'm hoping I've answered all of those.
Okay, carry on.
So go to town on this one. I mean, you just lay it out. Let's hear.
So as when I asked if you guys are members of political parties, that was one of the things that I was getting at. It's like any business. You're going to look for talent within. And like I said, I had started interacting with our leaders as far back as 2013. I didn't even think I was going to run. But so how a lot of our political parties are constituted or act is those people who've been in the trenches with them when it comes to looking for someone to serve in a particular position. That's where they go to first. So it's then very difficult for someone who's not in a party to, be approached or appointed. And don't forget, in any case, if I wasn't competent, the party could have easily refused and said, no, we don't like this guy, get another candidate.
For sure. Do you think that your father's influence had anything to do with this? Competence or not being considered? In the first term, in the second term?
Well, I'll be lying to say he didn't have an influence. I think I'm lucky insofar as I'm able to learn a lot from him. I've watched him handle meetings, chair meetings, deal with different issues in the region. In fact, when I get stuck somewhere, I would call him like, what's this issue about? And he would explain. So I'm lucky in that regard. But it still goes back to what I was saying, service to the party. Yeah.
Do you think that people judge you unfairly when they look at you and they say, this is Kalonzo's son, so yeah, there we go, just being given a position. So this is Kalonzo grooming a successor. I mean, this thing is only going to be rotating around the family. Do you think that's an unfair judgment by people?
Well, life is usually unfair. I think I came to terms with in one or another, I'll always be looked at unfairly. So I try not to focus too much on that, because I know what I'm capable of and what I'm able to achieve. I think one day the results would speak for themselves.
We all have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, your father had to start somewhere. So, my personal opinion, good for you. If you have a father who sees it fit to encourage his children to go into politics and recognize that they are who are more inclined towards it than others, good for him and good for you.
Where is the problem?
Precisely. I mean, you understand me perfectly, Rick. I mean, where is the problem? We talk about continuity and we talk about ensuring that a certain path is followed and that we breed leaders into the next generation.
Yeah.
But you're not the only young person in Wiper. The only reason you stand out is because of your name. People know. And the problem with that is that people then don't look at your achievements. They focus more on who your father is. But that shouldn't be a handicap, should it?
No, it should not.
Yes.
And I think I stand out from the work I'd done at the party. Actually, initially when I applied for this, it wasn't my dad's idea. Not many people know that. I remember my first consulting gig in the party, and the people I was consulting for were impressed. And their words to me were like, look, we need loyalty, and I think you can do this job. And then the rest is history.
If you were to look into the future, crystal ball gazing, and you were to speak your mind on the subject of what the East African community is likely to be when it's fully furnished and it's self-contained, what do you see?
A very powerful state of federation. I've had chance to look at our various histories, and look, we're really just one people. Our borders were designed in a manner as to cause maximum conflict, really. So we need to decolonize our way of thinking, and this, the artificial borders, because in all the partner states, you will find the same communities. And even from my limited, it used to be GHC. I think we were told the Bantus migrated from DRC. So it's just really, we're all just going back home.
Yeah. We are all one and the same people. What would it take? You're saying we need to decolonize our minds. What is it that is then required to achieve that decolonization, so we can all see one another as brothers and sisters?
I think it would require a lot of radical ideas. And also the involvement of the youth. We need the youth to interact with youth from partner states. The average age of the EAC is, last I checked, 22, 23. So really, we need to involve the youth a lot more. Vision-wise, I would love to see, an EAC league where Sofapaka is playing Simba or Yanga is playing AFC. Stuff like that. And maybe even domestication of our airspace. Why should it cost me $500 to go to Uganda and it costs me $500 to go to Dubai? There's a problem. So we need to think differently and a bit more radical.
Yeah. How would you think, or how would you imagine that member states would then change their outlook on what what EALA could actually do, on the further impact that the Assembly could have on regional as well as local politics, the trade that you're talking about, the travel agreements that you speak of, the movement of persons, the maybe eventual unitary, fund, things like that. What could it be that states could take the Assembly a little bit more seriously? Because I think some of the things that you've said, short of saying that, member states don't take the possible impact of the Assembly as seriously as they could. If they did, what are some of the things that you see could actually happen and quicker that member states are spending most of their time complaining about anyway?
I think, to answer your question, one of the quickest things that would happen is the implementation of the Assembly's recommendations. So remember, I said the ministers are members of the Assembly. So a lot of times when we do a report, we say we urge council, do this. And every year we have in the audit reports, they say of the recommendations to council, X percentage was done. Majority of it has not been implemented. So the implementation part,
it's usually less than 50%.
Less than 50%
of recommendations from EALA that are implemented.
Yeah.
So what's the point of having EALA?
That's an interesting question. That's just one aspect of it, because now this is an issue for the ministers to go and agree. And as I'd explained, where there is one issue that they haven't handled, then it won't handle, or they may take an approach where they say those of us who are ready and willing to move. So, for example, with the one area network. So if you go from Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, you have no problem with your charges. The rest were, I think, there's Tanzania is yet to finalize on that. But so, we recommended to the council, and at least in some part they acted on it. So that aside, all the oversights, as I'd mentioned, and the sensitization are still functions that EALA would have to do. We may be let down in one aspect, but that doesn't mean we should scrap the whole thing.
You know, Kennedy, there's something interesting that you mentioned, which is what you've seen is that most of the other EAC members, when it comes to sending representatives to the EALA, they look at having people who return, so they have institutional memory, and then they also look at the significance of the person that they are sending and what their brief is going to be. Seems Kenya uses EALA as this one place where, all right, so we've got people that we need to reward with this and the other, and we send them to East African Legislative Assembly. That's why you don't have people who are being sent back again and again and again. What do we need to do so that our Kenyan leaders can understand the importance of EALA and the importance of what you've said, that institutional memory, and looking at the strengths of each individual that they send there?
Well, I think for a start, for the first time in I don't know how long, they've actually sent someone with institutional memory.
At least.
More could be done. I think it's just for them to look at a policy perspective of having at least two members return. I'm not sure how.
Like it should be some sort of a policy.
Yeah.
Out of our 9 slots, let's ensure that X% are people who are going back for a second term or a third term.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, as the second part of your question, well, I don't know. I think I'm happy that now through all the various, crucifixions I've had, at least we've made this EALA a bit more come to the limelight. So a lot more people are interested in it. So I think that's one
because of Kennedy hanging on the cross.
One good I take out of it, and also that now a lot of young people are interested. It's a complicated question that needs maybe a bipartisan political approach, because even though I've said we should send someone with institutional memory, this would in fact require that this person should have support from either side of the divide.
Yeah.
But we all know how sometimes our politics can be very cantankerous and
heavily partisan.
Yeah, and may take time for people to come back to the table to chart a common way forward.
Of the committees, sorry, go ahead, Eric.
Sorry. Yeah. Back to Kennedy now.
Yeah.
You applied to join EALA the first time. You applied again. Do you see yourself applying to go back to EALA in 2027?
No, actually, so EALA has a fixed term of 2 terms. Right. So after that,
you're done.
Yeah.
So what next?
Well, we'll see when we get closer to that period. For now, my focus is to settle.
Kennedy, we've understood. Mm-hmm. We'll see now. Tell us what you see.
No, as of now, really, my focus is to ensure the new team have been given, go out and do an amazing job. I think capacity-wise, everyone there is talented in one way or the other, with different strengths. And I mean, in accordance with the treaty, as much as possible, the face of the country, I think. So that's my focus for now.
That is your focus for now.
Yeah.
Of the committees that you have within EALA, is there a committee that deals with communication? Or is there a department within the assembly that deals with communication? There's a reason why I ask this.
Yeah.
For something like this African community an entity like this African community to have an impact, it's important for the citizens of all the member states to understand it and to understand what it does.
Correct.
I dare say we don't really understand what it does. And that's what we're trying to do now.
Yes.
Okay? And the only way they can begin to try and understand it is if they're communicated to, if the issues about EALA are spoken of. And that's where the question about the person in charge of communication comes in. A deliberate effort to make sure that the citizens of the country members understand EALA and understand what EALA is about. Do you people have such a plan in place?
I mean, from what I've seen so far, usually, as I'd said earlier, when we are having our sittings, I'd always see representation from the other partner states, not so much Kenya, for example. So there's a department, but maybe for the first time we're now as a country becoming more interested because people have realized all our food is coming from Tanzania and Uganda. You know, how did this we were the manufacturing hub. What happened?
What happened to
You know,
this?
what I'm referring to? I know we're coming to an end.
Yeah, City. So end it there.
Yes.
Kennedy, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank
Kennedy
you for having
Musyoka Kalonzo is a member of the East African Legislative Assembly. He's been talking to us about the role, the power and influence of the EAC. Asante sana, and wish you all the best as you go back to Arusha.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to seeing you covering one of our plenaries in Arusha.
We will keep covering and in fact inviting you here as well to
Awesome.
tell us what's happening.
Thank you.
Keep it here for more conversations coming up in the next hour. It's now 8 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning. This is Newswire. Dennis Asato. President William Ruto is expected to meet Democratic Republic of Congo President Felix Tshisekedi. Ruto is in the country for a one-day state visit. Ruto is visiting the country just a few days after the Kenyan military joined their counterparts from East African countries in search of peace in eastern DRC. After the visit, the president is expected to head to South Korea for a 3-day state visit. Now, I applied to Wiper Party seeking nomination for the EALA position, says Kennedy Musyoka Kalonzo. In an interview with SpiceFM, Musyoka says his nomination and successful voting that saw him get the highest number of votes from both houses was due to his success at the Regional Assembly that saw him elected chairman of the Accounts Committee.
I applied to Wiper, and it's a party, if you look at the achievements of its leadership, you'd realize it's a party with a strong regional interest. And, you know, they really care about integration of the EAC. I always tell young people to join political parties, whatever parties they may feel aligned to. And, you know, parties work like any other big business. You look for talent within before you look for it outside. So I think my journey in the party started in 2013. I was always on the campaign trail. There's very little I've not done when the party has called upon me. Yeah, and even consultations because my first degree is in politics anyway, politics and IR. Yeah, so I do whatever the party needs of me.
It says that EALA is an important body for the region as member countries contribute by virtue of being members, and that oversight is therefore an important aspect on how the funds are spent.
I was elected chair of the Accounts Committee. The fourth EALA really focused on oversight, and being the chair of the Accounts Committee, which is the equivalent of the PAC here, when we came in, our books were not that great, but with the support of the committee and the oversight of the whole house, we've been able to move from qualified reports to unqualified, and as well as clear the backlog of the audited reports that are not being laid before the house. So remember, Kenya pays remittances to the EAC. There is need for oversight, otherwise how will taxpayers know where their money is being used? Of course, it's a regional making body. So the laws that are passed there, once assented to, supersede our local laws. So it's something that should be taken a lot more seriously, I think.
On business in the region and open markets, it says that the Assembly is focused on addressing the non-tariff barriers, it says, have to be handled if we want to have an integrated EAC that does business together.
One of the key mandates and what the Assembly does is to look at these issues of non-tariff barriers, where on paper it says, okay, we have a common market, but as they say, qua ground things are different. So what then the Assembly usually does is to go to some of these areas and really talk to the people and find out, what are the issues. The non-tariff barrier is one issue that always comes up, because if we're serious about integration, then at some point we have to really look at protectionism, which may come up in different partner states from time to time. So that has always been one very big challenge. The other big challenge, in my opinion, is the issue of consensus, where we're saying the ministers have to agree. Now, this made sense when there were 3 ministers initially, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania. But now we are 7. To be fair, to really ask them to agree on one particular issue is a big challenge.
Now, the apartment block in Ruiru, Kiambu County, whose tenants were evacuated yesterday, has collapsed. Kiambu Governor Kimani Matangi led the operations of evacuating the residents yesterday, flanked by Kiambu County firefighters after receiving reports from the National Construction Authority that the Ruiru OCPD data house had developed cracks.
Mtu yoyote ambaye anaendeleza mjengo bila idhini na bila stakabadhi zinazofaa, sasa hatua itakuwa tofauti. Tukitoka hapa inabidi tuende tuketi ile board ambayo inasimamia haya mambo, kwanza hiyo tutaiweka kando pia, kwa vile tunaona kuna kasoro. Watu wenye tumepatia wajibu wa kufanya hii kazi pia tutawapiga msasa mara ya pili sasa.
Now, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris will meet Philippine President Ferdinando Marcos today during a visit to the Southeast Asian nation aimed at boosting ties and countering China's growing regional clout. Harris is the highest-ranking U.S. official to visit Manila since Marcos took power in June, signaling a growing rapport between the longtime allies after years of frosty relations under the Beijing-friendly predecessor Rodrigo Duterte. She will also meet her Philippine counterpart, Sara Duterte, the daughter of the former leader, whose deadly drag war sparked an international investigation into alleged human rights abuses. This is Newswire. Dennis Saseta, good morning.
.5 SpiceFM, Kisumu.
Okay, traffic is not so much an issue this morning. It looks like folks will be able to get where they're going without much of a delay. We saw some traffic on Mombasa Road this morning, and that still continues with that issue. So what it was is that there was an accident, and so that held up traffic a little bit here and there between, what's this place called? Nation Princess, and then going out towards Kappa. So that slowed down quite some. Also, Kiambu Road is 7th. Okay, I think maybe we're at 11th Circle of Hell this morning because quite a number of vehicles in and outbound traffic. Who even knows which is in and which is outbound? But Kiambu Road is a mess. It's disastrous. There's traffic that's gone all the way past Wonder Joy. You know where that is. So it's not moving this morning. So if you don't need to be there, please, be somewhere else. It's an absolute mess. And that's what we're looking at this morning. The Thika Superhighway, not so bad. Into the CBD, also we're looking at some traffic here and there. Let's keep an eye on things. Kiambu Road, if you don't have to be there, please don't. Right. Let's talk. SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
8 minutes after 8. Good morning and welcome to the third hour of The Situation Room. Happy Monday if you're just joining us, the 21st day of November 2022. 10 days to the launch of the Hustler Fund. Nasikia? Siku ngapi? 10.
And 60 days before Kenha rectifies all the damage they caused.
60 what? 40
days, 6 weeks, man.
40 days.
42 days.
Well, I was giving them
you're giving them some extra time. Some extra boost like this.
Yes.
Ken has 40 days to.
Well, they said 6 weeks, didn't they?
Yeah.
It's 42 days now.
They said end of
Saturday
this year.
We'll give them the benefit.
We give them Saturday and Sunday.
Let's give them Saturday.
We count Saturday and Sunday.
Even if you give them Saturday and Sunday, it's still 42 days.
It's Moja Expressway, and the people who own Moja Expressway were doing Saturday and Sunday and middle of the night to construct the expressway.
It's not like jail where it's like
so they can do middle
night and days, 1 day, 2 days.
For them to actually do it, one has to see them, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they are not even on site, are they?
You can't see them.
Which sites?
I haven't seen them. I mean, I traverse this road daily. So, if I haven't seen any work going on, then there is no work going on.
You don't get to see them.
Oh, there are those, what are they? Pixies or fairies?
Wow. Peter Pan. Anyway.
Introduce me so I can add to this convo.
Oh, no, just chime in.
Just chime in. Winnie Odinga, MP-elect, East Africa Legislative Assembly. You have something to say?
No. Now the moment has passed.
So, City Muga is looking at his Samsung Galaxy Watch 5 Pro, and it's telling him today is the 21st day of November. It's telling him it's 10 days to what that thing called? Hustler Fund. It's giving him, so he still hasn't started counting days from for the route of presidency.
Let me account all days. Okay. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Everything.
They are days, aren't they?
All right.
It's when someone tells me 30 days. It's all days.
Refer to your tab now.
Yes.
The Tab S8 Ultra.
Okay.
Tell us the proverb from Western Sahara.
Well, yes. Just so that you can observe, that's what the screen looks like.
It looks like Western Sahara.
It does, doesn't it, just? Yeah. It looks like there's sand dunes.
It's gone off.
Well, that was briefly. The idea was not for you to fix your eyes on it, but momentarily see it.
Sour.
Believe what you see and lay aside what you hear.
Believe what you see and lay aside what you hear.
That's what it is.
This one from Western Sahara.
It is from Western Sahara.
Okay. Let's bring in our guest now, Winnie Odinga, who is the MP-elect for the East African Legislative Assembly. Winnie, good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys doing?
Us guys.
Yeah?
We're fine. How about you?
I'm getting used to that term you just called me. When I was walking here, somebody was shouting with Shimiwa. And I was asking, who is that he's calling? I've never been called that before.
What did you think it was going to be?
I didn't think.
Oh, no?
And I don't like it. I'm not used to it. I don't like it.
You don't want to be called Mheshimiwa?
Just call me Winnie.
Okay, Winnie.
Yeah.
There's a Kenyan phrase. Utazoea.
In fact, you should be most worried if I Zoea.
Really?
You should make sure I should never get comfortable with that.
With this one.
Yeah.
Winnie, you are the one who applied to be a member of the East African Legislative Assembly.
Yes,
Are you
I
not?
did. Yes, I did.
To your party, ODM?
No, you actually apply to the clerk of the National Assembly, and then the clerk forwards your name to your party, and your party then decides on the nomination list.
Okay.
Yes.
Why did you want to join EALA?
Why did I want to join EALA is because I think that Kenya, the world, the region is losing a lot by young people not getting involved in active participation of their civic duty. And the opportunity came about. It wasn't something that I can say I stayed up nights dreaming about, but it's something that I think I'll be able to help a lot more people with.
When did that idea get into your head?
I've been trending for 3 months. So the day somebody started the thing that I had applied, I hadn't. And I tweeted back that I have not. And people started saying, you have to.
Then you should.
You should, yeah. And so I did.
I mean, at least let the thing they accuse you of be true.
Let something be true.
Okay. All right. So what was your thinking? So when you finally said, okay, fine, let me go for this thing, did that thought, the initial thought that you've talked about now, that young people should be a lot more involved in their local and regional and global politics and decisions, did it resonate again when you said, okay, so there's Twitter pressure, should I do this thing? Or which one was weighing heavier on the scale? The inclusion and the participation, or the social media pressure to do something?
Social media is not real life. If people spoke in real person how they speak on social media, we would be at war constantly. But however, it is a gauge to tell some feelings. It is used to influence other people. But it was now coming down to real life. And the real life people reach me on my phone. But I was getting those abuses on my phone and different things like that. They reached me, and I think that outweighed whatever else was going on online. Yes.
Okay. What do you hope to do with this seat?
I can give you the generic answer. Of course, I want to make change.
Give us the real one, the one that was the one from the lab.
How about I tell you? I can sit here and I can bore you guys on policies, non-trade barriers, all those other things, all those other good things. But I think it's important for me to start with my thinking, how I think. So I'm a student of this thing called design thinking. And design thinking is when you think of the user's experience in mind. So you think of the end user's experience in mind. So in everything that you create, that's where you begin. So if I'm going to EALA and I'm talking about changing the lives of ordinary Kenyans here in Nairobi, let's say Yule Msewa Nduthi, how does me going to EALA help him? In a larger scale, all these policies will eventually impact him. But right now, how does this position benefit him? So before I can go in there, I have to do a social audit. Yeah, I have to begin with the question why. I have to think of his experience. What is he doing right now? Maybe he's just woken up right now. Ako kwa base, jaba kidogo. He's doing his thing. He's got a bike. He's taken his bike. At the end of the day, he's earned 2,000 shillings. Of that 2,000, what's his experience? 1,000 goes to the owner of the bike. After that, 50 bob every day has to go to the SACCO. Fuel, 400 maybe. No, fuel, 500. So where are we now?
He's left with 450.
450? So that thing they call salad, the cooking oil, a liter now is 400. Yeah. So at best, he can maybe get some food for 200, put 200 on the side for rent at the end of the month, which is 5,000. So I have to enter his mind. So what does he want to do? He wants things that can open up the space so he can have more money in his pocket, more markets and whatever. So after I've done that and I've taken his experience, then I do a plan. Just hold that for a second because I'm coming back to it. So if you look at how the EU began, for example, the EU began in about 1952. That was, World War II was 1945, 7 years after World War II. The EU was began by members of this union for coal and steam. And they said, let's do business together so that if we do business together, we'll have no reason for war. So their thing was to end war, right? Are you with me?
Yep.
We're with you.
To
So
end
they said,
opportunities and
to end
reason
war,
to fight.
let's invest in each other's countries so that if anybody wants to attack, if we want to attack Congo, you'll be like, hey, no, Kenyans are there. Equity Bank is there. We're the biggest bank in Congo. Let's not do that. If you wanted to attack in France or whatever, you had reasons not to. And since then, there's been no active war between. So back to my thinking, what's the point of the EAC? Perhaps to eradicate poverty. What are some of the things? I don't know. Pick something. Let's just say it's poverty.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
By better integration, opening up trades.
Yeah, but
ensuring that there's better harmony among the peoples.
True. But let's say it's poverty.
Yeah.
Now, right now, we're these individual, small countries. So you take the question, why do we have poverty? You take the question further. What has been the reason these countries which produce agricultural products are not succeeding? You take the question further, is it because of a lack of programs? Is it because of that? So for me, that's my thing. I'm perennially asking the question why, understanding the reason why, and then making laws to fix it.
So this thing that you want to do to sort out this Msewa Boda, right?
Yeah.
Who is earning 2,000 bob a day, and you want to expand the opportunities. Why the East African community? Why not
Because,
the Kenyan assembly? Why not a county assembly?
So, for example, in the EALA, I heard Kennedy speaking about the single monetary unit. EALA has done its part on legislation. But what are the benefits or what are the problems of it now? If you're going to Tanzania from here, or any country in the EAC, there's a bank at the border. A border bank where your shilling is switched for another currency, and you come back, and every time, constantly, there's changes in that. So you're not able to move freely, you're not able to go buy things in other countries as freely. But what this does in the end with the union is that when you're speaking to people who are meant to give Kenya money, you're not just talking about Kenya alone, you're talking about an East African GDP. You will have something bigger to bank on. And from that point, you can be able to get more access to funds that you can use programs to impact this guy of Boda. If we're saying agriculture, part of the reason for this poverty I was talking about can be, what do you call it, when many countries are doing the same things, like producing the same thing. Comparative advantage. Yeah. So perhaps as an agricultural hub, we're all producing the same things. But which of these countries makes the best lemons, if I was to ask you? I used to ask this question in the campaign. The best lemons are made in Kenya. Where in Kenya? Do you know? Could you take a guess?
No, I would not hazard a guess.
Yeah. The best lemons in Kenya for export are made in Garissa because of the conditions, the altitude, the Tana River. The biggest and most bitter lemons for export are made in Garissa. Yeah. And that's a part of Kenya that we don't see as an agricultural hub. So you start saying, okay, all of us as countries are making lemons. Kenya, you focus on the lemon. Perhaps Burundi, you make us the limes. Okay? So now you've given this Ndudi options. Yeah. The other day I was in Siaya and somebody was growing coffee. What we never knew, right by the lake, is that the altitude is the same as Limuru. So in Alego, he's growing using the Ruru 11 coffee seed. He's growing Arabica coffee in Alego. Yeah. He's growing it and he's exporting it. But all his neighbors have just been growing maize. So now he's showing them, hey, you can start growing this thing. There's something I've been perennially saying in South Nyanza about sugar cane. And if you've ever had a sweetener, it's called the stevia.
Yep.
You know stevia? Of course you do. You guys are educated. The stevia plant, the stalk, grows taller than the sugarcane plant. Same conditions, same space, but one stalk gives you 1.5 more sugar than a sugarcane plant. So if the sugar industry is dead, pivot, switch. Why are we importing sugar from Uganda? Let them do the sugarcane. If it's not working here, we have to switch. We have to find newer ways of doing things. We have to give people options. Nobody grows up saying he wants to ride the Ndudi. Nobody's here. They left home because there were no options. So we give them options back at home.
How do we make that happen? And I think we're replete with examples of what could work better. We have the buzzwords are flying in our face all the time of how people come to Kenya to benchmark, etc., etc. Now we're looking at this in light with some hope of some kind of congruence with everybody else in the region. How do you make it happen in Kenya to then influence the rest of the community, the rest of the countries that make up the assembly? How then will this happen? Because I hear your thoughts and I can see where your thinking goes. How then will these threads of thinking come out with this garment that would be the region?
So I know I've said a lot of things, but there's an intricate plan to each of it. The first thing is to begin at home. And here at home, I have the benefit of knowing, and in fact, I was told that since I'm a Mheshimiwa now, I have to use diplomacy, of persuading them. And if not, I know where to squeeze them.
Okay.
But of course, when I go out there, I'm not going to do that. There'll be no mandamano in DRC for me. The one thing about the East Africa Legislative Assembly is they've been widely successful. They've passed all the things they need for us to be a union. Their trouble is in implementation. And the implementation arm is run by the Council of Ministers. Now, the EAC minister, or maybe it's the Foreign Affairs minister when it comes to these things, that ministry doesn't have the impetus as, for example, the Agriculture Ministry. But it's more important than the Agricultural Ministry. Our agricultural ministries in this region will forever perform subpar because they are not looking at the market behind us. We're always looking out there. So it's to create incentives to show them the benefits of these markets. If you have a region with no ID, right now if you go to Tanzania by plane, even your ID they won't allow you, need a passport. If you have a region where I can drive to DRC, this Kenya shilling that I use here, let's say we have one monetary note, it has the face of Nyeri, I can use it there, I can use it everywhere. That Msewa Nduthi, now, he doesn't, if there's too much competition here in Nairobi, so he's not getting much stuff, he can go to Eastern DRC and he starts Uber Goma, for example. We've opened it up so people are free to invest in other places. And Kenya being so much more advanced than many of these other ones, we're opening the market for everybody. Build it and they will come. We're entrepreneurial.
You know, we asked your fellow Mheshimiwa, the gentleman who preceded you, this question. You wax very philosophically, and it's beautiful to listen to. It's something you've clearly given thought, and that is a good thing. The issue, as you've clearly pointed out, has to do with how do you implement these things. But my concern, and which is what we raised with Mheshimiwa Kennedy Musyoka, was beyond a show like this and beyond the Mheshimiwa coming to a show like this, a deliberate plan to ensure people understand what it is that EALA does, so that you carry people with you.
Exactly.
The citizens of each country, you carry them with you, because if the citizens see the benefit of it, even if there is, monkeys are given a bad rap on this one, even if there's monkey business and their partisan interest now coming to the fore, the power of the citizenry plays an important role in this. Now,
Absolutely.
When you think of EALA and you think of what needs to be done with a parliament that is there, of which you are a member, do you think there ought to be a concerted and deliberate role that a communication department or a communication arm or a committee should play in matters concerning EALA?
Yes, I believe so. Absolutely. I agree with everything that you're saying. There is a communication department. And Ken, who was here before, was talking of, he's tried to get KBC to go and show what they're doing. But that's not good enough. We have to be more inventive in our approach of communicating to our people the benefits. We have to break it down to the simplest point. We have to show each person what the benefit is for them if we do this. You're absolutely right. I was going to mention that point. We need everybody from every corner shouting EAC for it to give the leadership the impetus to do work in it. As a legislator, you have a few jobs. You legislate on behalf of the people, you represent them, but your job is also to inform them. What I'm understanding is that how the assembly, it's a bit tight. You're not as able to go around and do what it is. But I have a political background and political communications. We have to be able to go to the people, explain to them what it is, and have each of them screaming, EALA, 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 EALA. And that is really the unspoken thing in terms of achieving implementation of this thing that we're talking about.
You know why I am focusing and perhaps sticking to this particular issue is when I look at the tenets of relationships that countries have, there's always bad blood somewhere. For instance, it is mentioned, it's anecdotal, yes, but how Tanzania and Kenya, or Tanzanians, not Tanzania, have issues. And how Kenyans are treated in Tanzania. There'll be stories about so-and-so's maize, so-and-so's eggs. Now, it's because in my mind, I'm listening to all these and I say, our citizens don't seem, this integration thing, we talk about it, but it seems to be at some level, the citizenry don't relate to this issue of integrity. Now, my mind goes back to a time when you had some xenophobic issues in South Africa. Now, some of the people who were targeted were people who are part and parcel of their economic community. And the reason, again, is the locals felt that their jobs were being taken. They were being disadvantaged. Now, given Kenyans, given the way we are and the aggressive nature in which we approach business, wouldn't one be right in saying that our neighbors would be fearful of opening our borders and letting the marauding Kenyans in? Because who is to tell what Kenyans will do once they get to your country?
That's absolutely true. The issue of South Africa is slightly different. And that comes with Mandela, Rainbow Nation, saying we forgive and move on. And that's a time bomb of its own. I won't get into it right now. But the one I like to use is the European Union. They had those negative predispositions about one another. They had that, but they were able to overcome it. Now, there are those countries who did it better than the others. For example, the UK could not overcome their prejudice, and they left, and look where they are right now. But the thing is, this economic nationalism is hurting us more as a region, as a people. If everybody is saying, in order for me to grow, yes, I know I need you, but I'd rather stay like this, so because I don't want you to come in.
Because I don't trust you.
Yeah. So we have to really focus on cultural integration. People are afraid of what they don't know, what they don't understand. And it's a shame that 60 years after all these countries have gotten independence, they failed. These countries have failed. These countries are not A-star economies. They've all had their presidents, their systems. They've not achieved what it is. And so now the impetus, I feel, is on the people. I said this in an interview last week. We have to move on from the political and the political machinations, which is tribalism, and the things that are used to manipulate our impetus, and foster proper relations between the people. Who's the highest artist that you play on this radio station? It's Diamond Platinum. Growing up, I could not breathe without hearing Kofi Olumide being played by my mother. Yeah? There's so many things. You have people saying they like Matoke from Uganda, they like whatever. It's for us to enhance those things. First, it's not going to be by force. We have to culturally be intertwined. But if here at home we're fighting over tribes, that's why they don't want us. It's not the business thing. They say, Wakenya wako na vita.
But Mheshimiwa, you know, we are in the realm of what we call identity politics. And usually it's nestled within, say, certain confines, like within Kenya, Uganda. All these regions have their identity politics. So we're already that way inclined. And I'm focusing on this one, and I will not speak on it again until another day. But the East African community has the opportunity of overriding all these things, because the integrative part of the community provides an opportunity for people to get along at that level. So if they're going to be quarreling and quibbling among themselves locally, well, that's a different matter. But at that other level, the benefits that accrue from that understanding, I think, will benefit the people of this region far more than they even realize. But they can't benefit until they get to a point where they understand it and in so doing participate in it fully.
Better. Let's take a break on that note so that then we can continue the conversation. 27 minutes to 9, Winnie Odinga, MP-elect, the East African Legislative Assembly. Mheshimiwa Winnie Odinga. We'll be back shortly after we take this quick break. Take a look at the weather and traffic situation on the roads.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. The adults in the room.
I've seen some marriages, relationships, cohabitings struggle because there was no independence of the relationship.
It needs a certain level of intelligence. You need to reach a place where you know yourself, and again, you're not feeding off society.
Whether it is matters of the heart, finances, or work that's weighing on your mind, worry not.
Tune into Adults in the Room
every Monday to Friday from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m.
The adults in the room will help you stay winning. Only on 94.4 SpiceFM, Nairobi.
Everyone remembers the ambition they first had when they started their business.
A business holds promise. An idea could blow up and change lives anywhere on the planet. But the best idea is not worth much if it can't be executed by a solid team. Introducing The Room, the talent solution that provides a global network of tech talent, relationships, and resources dedicated to drive growth and innovation in your business. Hire tech talent and pick from qualified software engineers, cloud developers, web developers, and data analysts, all vetted and trained to Silicon Valley standards. The way we work has changed, and subsequently, so should the way we hire. Visit theroom.com today and discover how we can improve your business.
All right, so still looking at partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning, going to highs of 24. We'll see lows of 16. Looking into Nakuru, we'll see highs of 26 and we'll see highs of 26 in Nyeri as well. Looking at partly cloudy conditions in Eldoret this morning, we'll go to highs of 24 and coming down to lows of 17. It's cloudy in Mombasa and Malindi, looking at highs of 28 and highs of 29 respectively. All right, looking out into Kampala, we'll see highs of 27. We'll see highs of 30 in Dar es Salaam. And we'll go to highs of 26 in Johannesburg. Cloudy conditions in Lagos this morning, going to highs of 32. And we'll go to highs of 30 in Kinshasa.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. SpiceFM.
Spice up your life.
All right, we've seen a sticky situation, and look, folks, that building that came down in Radar Town this morning has some people unfortunately standing around and causing some traffic there. Let's look at Idhuru Junction, then going out, coming out of Waiyaki Way. There's some traffic there, and that's helped folks up. The Red Hill Link Road is providing some good escape routes for folks this morning, so you want to think about using that. Thika Superhighway has not been bad. Everybody on Thika Superhighway is driving past and looking at the folks on Kiambu Road and saying, oh no, I'm sorry, what's going on? Well, what's going on is that traffic is disastrous. I think we were at 11th Circle of Hell, maybe 13th now. It's terrible traffic on Kiambu Road this morning, all the way to Wonder Joy and beyond Coffee Gardens. So it's not fun this morning. If you don't have to be on Kiambu Road today, do not. Coming off of Mombasa Road, much better now. That traffic situation has been sorted out. So still in traffic hour this morning. We'll see what it looks like in a short while. Let's talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
Spice and everything nice. All right. SpiceFM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Mornings done right.
This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We're live on SpiceFM, KTN Home, and online. It's Eric Latif Nduoko, CT Muga, and our guest is Winnie Odinga, MP-elect for the East African Legislative Assembly, talking about her plans for the next 5 years, serving as a member of the East African Legislative Assembly. You told us, Winnie, you are looking at that Nduthi person and looking at the opportunities that this person then can tap into with the wider East African community. And if the East African community was functioning as it was designed to function, then all of us would get the benefits. You talked about, look, how can we make use of our comparative advantages and see if we are better on this, somebody else is better on the other. Is it something that you'd go and take, for example, as a bill or motion to the East African Legislative Assembly and say, let's create special economic zones, for example, or special production zones, leveraging on the strengths of each individual state?
Absolutely. You know, comparative advantage, first of all, is created. It doesn't come from heaven. You create it. And the thing that makes it work is scale. Now, when I travel throughout this country, we have what are called tinfoil slums. And I've flown actually over Kenya into Tanzania. And you know exactly where the border is. Because in Tanzania, because of their system, they've seen collective farming is better, they're more productive. Mm-hmm. For me, I said my thing is based on young people and data, internet data. We need to first look at a long-term plan. Where will the world be in that 15 years? what will be their needs? The food basket we know will be in Africa. But what will be the demand? What do we need to focus on? Once we're able to identify that, we need to map out what resources we have. We need a data bank of what's the soil here, what's the temperature, what's the atmospheric pressure. Hey, you can't be cutting down trees in the DRC. It's affecting climate change. You're causing drought in Kenya. We need to have a data bank of every bit of this region so that when the world comes to us, it's no more handouts. We're saying, yes, we've been growing these. You want avocado face masks? We've been growing for 7 years. We have 50,000 hectares of avocado. We've been doing this for flowers. We've been doing this there. We have this here. So that you don't have a case like what happened last week. I was so ashamed. You just see people twerking for Bill Gates over GMO. But why are we in that state? Why are the coffers empty? There was something that used to happen in the Grand Coalition government where you sit with the meteorological department, they tell you your rains for next year, you plan, they tell you so, add stock here, sell this, you're going to have an overflow. There has to be some planning. Now, Bill Gates, what's Bill Gates' net worth? Does anybody know?
It fluctuates. I don't know what the current one is.
But it's in the billions of dollars.
Hundreds of billions.
Yes.
What's the GDP of Burundi or Rwanda or whatever? Bill Gates can buy that country. So when he goes and attacks that country by himself, the country doesn't have anything. They can't fight back. Yeah? And they're being given a product that's not good for them. Now, if you create the policy at EALA and say that here in the East Africa Union, this is our policy on GMO. This is our study. Before anybody in this country moves, this is our study, and from that we've created this policy, and you're not going to come to any of these countries. We're going to talk about it. I've heard people saying how GMO is good for them and whatever. I lived in America. Have you seen the size of Americans? GMO is not something that is good for us right now. And even if it's is being used as an intervention, what are we doing to further not have to need this intervention? If it's an immediate intervention because people are starving to death, as Africans, we're not unique. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. So after you've planned it out, we find out, okay, you're going to do this, you're going to make this. Now, what do we need for you to be able to do it? Is it machinery? You need to start thinking of vertical farming, polytunneling. We can't keep talking about irrigation and drip irrigation. It's moved further, artificial intelligence, robotics in farming. So what is it? Is a question that we can buy it? Can we make it? Okay, maybe as they're learning how to make it, we've bought a few, but we're also going to have a factory in Kampala where they'll be making it. You see, we can do all these things at the same time, but if we keep moving as separate entities in this place, it's not beneficial to any of us.
But why are we moving as separate entities?
Because we need money. And the people who give...
Each entity?
Yes. And the people who give us money don't want us to move as a union. It's better for them. It's better for them when your
So this talks about the political leadership of the entities, right? It talks about at that national level. The leaders of the East African community.
I would say global politics. I would just call it global politics.
Let's talk about the leaders of the East African community because they are the ones who are in charge of ensuring that we have this proper integration
now I'm not
fully
speaking
realized.
As opposition. Now those would be my bosses. So now...
Leaders include you as a member of the East African Legislative Assembly, right? Yeah. Taking us towards this position where we have proper integration of the East African community. Common markets, single monetary union, single political federation. We've had MPs sitting in Arusha for all these years. And yet most we've done is we come up with pieces of legislation. Now there is a legislation on the monetary union. But the realization of it is, the dream is to have a single East African currency by 2024. I mean, you have studied a lot because you have applied for this particular job. How close are we to even getting this single currency in a year's time? You know,
I was recently writing an article on the benefits and costs of COVID and the Russia-Ukraine war and the world inflation on these countries. And I kept pivoting to actually, for us as a region, yes, we've been hit hard by the rising cost of prices, but there's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to pivot as nations. The situation has gotten extremely desperate. Countries are not giving out money anymore. China's closed its doors. All we're left with right now is IMF, and IMF has so many strings attached. So it's an opportunity for us to be inventive and to pivot and to try new ways for us to be productive. And I think it's a blessing in Africa. And if we overlook it, we'll be doing the biggest mistake of our lives.
Okay. Even as you say that, and I hear you loud and clear, that we also look at nations who seem to have made a step forward, right? Whether they're coming together with their regional partners or not, but the principle remains the same, that regardless of the noise that you hear outside, you roll up the window and you do what is best for you at that time. Would you apply the same principle for the regional bodies that we see, that we understand what the reality is? You said, yeah, we go that way because we need money, isn't it? Mm-hmm. But in the long run, what would be better for the regional bodies on the African continent is to probably shut out the noise and do what's best for you at that time. Or how do you see that happening today? If you need money, something that really steps on your neck, isn't it? But then you know that the things you must implement have far outreaching benefits than taking the money in the interim. How do you make that happen?
That question has many answers, some of which are the global dark, if you've ever heard of that. Why countries or leaders do what they do, and what foreign countries do to our leaders that we may not even know of, to have situations such as that. One of the best examples of what you're describing is the AU, right? The African Union has by far not been able to achieve much except policy year after year. But the leadership of the AU is picked not on this continent, but picked off this continent by big powers. The question that you're asking is difficult for me to answer because I would be exposing things that have gotten a lot of people in a lot of trouble. The time when leaders are unable to be bullied by foreign countries is when there's pressure at home from the citizenry. When the people are saying, this is what we want. When the people are pushing, this is what we want. Everywhere the president turns, he's just hearing, this is it, this is what we want. This is what I mean by also by political participation of young people. We actually have to get out and agitate. We actually have to get out as far as we can get out and agitate and say, hey, we're not just going to sit here and die hungry, okay? There's a market there. All you have to do is tell your minister to implement this. That's what we need to do. So I would like to answer it that way and leave it there.
You know, one of the things that perhaps whenever we discuss geopolitics, we look at countries, and in my mind, we focus on the wrong entity. We should look at the leaders of the countries. And the reason why I say this is my view. Many African leaders treat their countries as their own personal property. I mean, democracy notwithstanding, the way they go about the business, the way they go about handling the resources, the interest of the people doesn't take second or third place. It takes 10th place to 20th place. Now, a community like the one we're talking about, the one you're going to represent Kenya in, has existed before. And some of the things that we're pursuing, like that monetary unity, it actually existed. We had even integrated services. We had East African Harbours, Railways and Harbours Corporation. We had the airline. We had the post office. It's not as though it's something we didn't do, we couldn't have done. And all this even preceded the EU in terms of getting it together so that it can work as a unit. So when you say there are forces that fight it, that I can understand. However, when you have a background where you've actually seen something work, you are far better off than someone who's starting right from scratch. So now, identity politics and the personal interests of political leaders notwithstanding, the youth that you speak of and the power of the numbers they have, it's dissipated because in my mind, as somebody who's older, the youth seems to be following in the footsteps of those who are older, the very thing they should not do. When I say footsteps, I mean there's a concept we refer to in Kenya called rent seeking, where people do things, people do things because they stand to gain. And it isn't just the youth, it's someone has a political position, wherever it is, no matter how small, the first port of call is how do I, not how do the people I represent gain. Now, when you're in EALA and you discuss some of these matters, the youth become pivotal to the discussion because that's the future. It doesn't matter whether you like it or not, the youth are the future. How do you address the issues of the youth and ensure that they are positioned to benefit not just from EALA, but to benefit from the resources of the individual countries?
That's a question I want to think about deeply. Off the top of my head, we are living in a different world. This is not the world of protest on the street per se. There's different forms of protest. There's different forms of expressing yourselves. Because of social media, everything is curated for the user. You follow who you're following, you follow who you're following. Everything has become centered on the individual. But the beauty of that is that people are able to see new things that they like. They're able to learn new skills online. I love the story of Diego, who learned how to throw the javelin and broke the record from YouTube. I believe the number one, this is not factoring in food, water, and shelter. The number one thing we have to do is to increase internet connectivity for the region. Now, this is, remember what I said about the EU, how they started because of using economic benefit? Mm-hmm. This would be a project that will need all of these countries to participate. From my research, the best place, we have a fiber cable to Mombasa. The best place to put a data center would be Kisumu. Why? Kisumu is 1 hour flight to all the capital cities in East and Central Africa. From Bangui, which is not yet in here, Bangui in Central African Republic, not Bangui. No, you understood, but I realized.
He's eternally grateful for that clarification.
I knew you were not talking of the vegetable, yes.
No. To all these places. Yeah. So when you have it, you put an undersea cable like through the lake, and you've connected to the other side. Necessity is the mother of invention. I think we truly underrate the capability of a young person to self-teach, to do business on their own, to improve their business through the use of the internet. So that is something I strongly believe. Now, you can say it's theoretical, it's not practical, such a thing can't happen. However, in all these countries, it doesn't matter where you go, everybody's on their phone. Everybody is on their phone. It doesn't matter where you go. They always like to give statistics. I've not met a person without a phone yet or access to one. So if this is the thing they're telling you, they're showing you this is where we are, this is where we talk, this is what makes us better, then we have to enhance that capacity. And we have to enhance it regionally. So if you're doing a special economic zone there, for example, just do the same model you did in Lamu, where they come and this is for the Ugandan, this is for the what, this is for who, and we're up there.
You know, I am in a position where I'm lamenting the youth of the 21st century because what isn't seen is that the forward movement that this country has achieved politically and even economically was spearheaded and propelled by youth. This is what they don't see. The political leaders we had at independence were youth. All the political leaders who are now old men and women, they were youth. This is not an agenda they started pushing when they were older. They started pushing the agenda when they were very young. And you see, I'm looking at the youth of the 21st century, and now I've become regional. I'm talking about, I've become localized. And I'm looking at the young leaders of this country and I'm asking, where are the young leaders who are pushing a national agenda? Where? Someone has to point one and tell me that particular person is pushing a national agenda. They're all pushing either a party agenda or an individual agenda. And in the absence, and you see, in the past, there were groups. There were people who had an ideological similarity. Now I don't see it. So even as we talk about it, it's not theoretical. I know it's possible, but where are they?
You asking me?
Yes, I am.
I don't know, but I'm going to find them. You see, traditionally as Africans, we used to solve things palaver. We sit under a tree and we talk about it. I would love to see an EAC where the leaders sit peacefully and they agree for those things. Now, when it comes to young people, I pose the question, where is our black leader? As black people, we have always had our black leader, our North Star. If you think of Mandela, if you think of Martin Luther King, then you come to Mandela. After Mandela, Kofi Annan was there a bit as the UN Secretary General. Then we had Obama. And then...
There's a gentleman you might know of. It's called Raila Odinga.
I'm unable to see him objectively.
Yes, so let me talk about it objectively, because the role you say, if you look at Raila Odinga's history, he started when he was a very young person. He was young then. But whatever it is he stood for, he and others, it's an agenda that has been pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And as my sister here and I saying, well, boom, here we are. You see, now, there's something that they believed in. There's something they wanted to see. In the same way as the so-called founding fathers, there's something they had this vision. You see, the question I'm asking is the same one. Where are these young leaders who...
Well, you see, the difference with that, they did not sell their stories themselves. Martin Luther King became a bigger thing after his death. His story was sold around the world by his allies, his comrades, his followers. Mandela, for 27 years, it was a big thing all over the world. People didn't even know who Mandela was because of the people pushing his story and selling his story. When Obama became a president, we had a national holiday here. So we, as Kenyans, also have to see what we have and push the story. But the main character in the story is not to push his story out there by himself.
Winnie, the issue of the image someone creates through what they represent over a long period of time, the passage of time has a way of watering it down. But again, these are collective issues. People will stand out in that group, but they're collective. See, I'm asking the question, that group of Raila Odinga, we know the individuals were involved, then there are many.
No, I understand your question. You see,
Yes.
there is a vacuum, but something will sprout from it. What's that saying they say about
nature abhors a vacuum.
It will come out. We used to be excited about Malema. That story went badly.
I actually don't think there's a vacuum.
There's a young guy in Zimbabwe called Chamisa.
Yes.
Brilliant. That's somebody to watch. There are different people in the regions that are going to come up. We had a stint there with Bobby Wine. Let's see if he can reinvent himself.
Who are the people with him? You see, the thing is, that sort of thinking, there'll be individuals who stand out, but as I said, there are others who think like them.
Yeah, but you see, you're looking for something, City. You're looking for something that is described as, revolutionary in thinking and working the certain models of operandi that you associate with.
Yes, it has changed.
The new one is different, and that's why you cannot see it.
How different?
That's why you cannot see
At
it.
some point, I have to see it because it has to manifest itself.
Do you have TikTok?
Wow.
Yeah.
What TikTok is?
Which TikTok is asking?
That's why it's manifesting itself.
I'm with Winnie. I don't think there's a vacuum. I think it's actually happening.
It's just happening in different forms. It's happening in dance. Look what's happening in that music video over there. That never happened. That's a form of protest. Now, we had a presidential candidate who was pushing for the use of marijuana. And I sat with my father and I told him, Dad, if you weren't running, I'd probably vote for this guy. And he asked me why. I said, because I find myself agreeing with the things he's saying. Like, fine, if anybody is caught harming a child or whatever, we'll shoot them in Uhuru Park. Yeah.
Severest punishment.
No.
We've got to conclude that. Thank you very much for coming today. We've talked to you before on phone, on video, but this is the first time you've been in the studio.
Yeah.
Come again, right? And let's use this opportunity.
The problem is you're so early. I'm not a morning person. I'm a more...
It's a whole worm thing.
Now you'll be a morning person.
No, I sleep from 3 to 9, so... But I'll try my best. I'd love to come back. It's been a pleasure.
Asante sana.
Thank you very much.
Winnie Odinga, MP-elect East Africa Legislative Assembly. Keep it here for more conversations. Good morning, 9 a.m.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Young people should engage more on their civic role because they tend to lose a lot by not being active. EALA MP-elect Winnie Odinga says that she followed the due process and followed every aspect of it that led her to be elected to represent the country on the regional assembly. In an interview with SpiceFM, she says that she'll work to ensure that it is easy for citizens from the region to do business with each other and take advantage of the resources the region provides.
One thing about the East Africa Legislative Assembly is they've been widely successful. They've passed all the things they need for us to be a union. Their trouble is in implementation, and the implementation arm is run by the Council of Ministers. Now, the EAC minister, or maybe it's the Foreign Affairs minister when it comes to these things, that ministry doesn't have the impetus as, for example, the Agriculture Ministry. But it's more important than the Agricultural Ministry. Our agricultural ministries in this region will forever perform subpar because they are not looking at the market behind us. We're always looking out there. So it's to create incentives to show them the benefits of these markets. If you have a region with no ID, right now if you go to Tanzania by plane, even your ID they won't allow you, need a passport. If you have a region where I can drive to DRC, this Kenya shilling that I use here, let's say we have one monetary note, it has the face of Nyeri, I can use it there, I can use it everywhere. That Msewa Ndudhi, now he doesn't, if there's too much competition here in Nairobi, so he's not getting much stuff, he can go to Eastern DRC and he starts Uber Goma, for example. We've opened it up so people are free to invest in other places.
She says she'll ensure that agreements agreed upon by the Assembly are implemented by the respective quarters and that the benefits that come with EAC are communicated to the people so that they understand what EAC is all about.
There is a communication department, and we have to be more inventive in our approach of communicating to our people the benefits. We have to break it down to the simplest point. We have to show each person what the benefit is for them if we do this. We need everybody from every corner shouting EAC. EAC for it to give the leadership the impetus to do work in it. As a legislator, you have a few jobs. You legislate on behalf of the people, you represent them, but your job is also to inform them. We have to be able to go to the people, explain to them what it is, and have each of them screaming, yalla, 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 yalla. And that is really the unspoken thing in terms of achieving implementation of this thing that we're talking about.
Earlier, EALA MP-elect Kennedy Musyoka Kalonzo said that it is important for the region as member countries to contribute by virtue of being members and that oversight is therefore an important aspect on how the funds are spent.
I was elected chair of the accounts committee. The fourth EALA really focused on oversight, and being the chair of the accounts committee, which is the equivalent of the PAC year, when we came in, our books were not that great, but with the support of the committee and the oversight of the whole house, we've been able to move from qualified reports to unqualified, and as well as clear the backlog of the audited reports that are not being laid before the house. So remember, Kenya pays remittances to the EAC. There is need for oversight, otherwise how will taxpayers know where their money is being used? Of course, it's a regional making body, so the laws that are passed there, once assented to, supersede our local laws. So it's something that should be taken a lot more seriously, I think.
On business in the region and open markets, it says that the Assembly is focused on addressing the non-tariff barriers, it says, have to be handled if we want to have an integrated EAC that does business together.
One of the key mandates and what the Assembly does is to look at these issues of non-tariff barriers, where on paper it says, okay, we have a common market, but as I say, qua ground things are different. So what then the Assembly usually does is to go to some of these areas and really talk to the people and find out, what are the issues. The non-tariff barrier is one issue that always comes up, because if we're serious about integration, then at some point we have to really look at protectionism, which may come up in different partner states from time to time. So that has always been one very big challenge. The other big challenge, in my opinion, is the issue of consensus, where we're saying the ministers have to agree. Now, this made sense when there were 3 ministers initially, Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania. But now we are 7. To be fair, to really ask them to agree on one particular issue is a big challenge.
And the apartment block in Ruiru, Kiambu County, whose tenants were evacuated yesterday, has collapsed. Kiambu Governor Kimani Ombatangi yesterday led the operations flanked by Kiambu County firefighters after receiving reports from the National Construction Authority and the Ruiru OCPD that a house had developed cracks. We continue to follow up on what is happening in Kiambu, Ruiru County, and we'll be bringing you the very latest. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, traffic still a bit of an issue in some parts of the city today. We're looking at Kiambu Road, which is pretty busy. We're also looking at, and so that issue is still to be sorted out yet. Not quite sure what is causing this mammoth traffic on Kiambu Road today. Whereas Thika Superhighway is not having too much of an issue at all. Very strange for Monday morning, but still looks all right. Mombasa Road looks good as you get towards the Haile Selassie Junction and then into the CBD. We're looking at some traffic then going towards Landis, and it's heavy as you approach Kamkunji. It's busy Monday morning. It's a few minutes after 9 o'clock. Let's see what happens about 9:30 or so. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
7 minutes after 9. This is The Situation Room. We're on to the final hour of the show today, Monday. Happy Monday, wherever you're tuned in. And in this hour, we want to talk about what we've been witnessing around the country, particularly these counties of Nairobi and Kiambu. Buildings coming up, buildings have structural defects, buildings come tumbling down. In one unfortunate incident, a building came tumbling down in Ruiru last week, and people who are in an adjacent plot, sleeping in their own home, peacefully, which did not have any structural defect, were killed. And this is an elderly couple. Today, we are seeing, following the warning that had been issued earlier about a building that was appearing to have some structural issues, the building has now come down. Again in Kiambu County. We have a guest in the studio who's an engineer who's well-versed on these matters. Before we welcome and introduce him, C.T. Muga looking at his Samsung Galaxy Tab S8 Ultra, which is a big screen. 14 point, how many? 2.6?
Just 6.
14.6
Yes, but we
inches.
are Kenyans, and I can give you a discount. It can be 14 inch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You heard it. I can give you
Yeah,
a
good
discount. I
discount.
can add for you.
Can be 14 inch.
Yes.
Super AMOLED screen.
Yes, my friend.
Yeah.
And the thing about that AMOLED screen is the clarity. You know, people talk about things coming into life. There are some things which are a joy to have, because even when you write something, or even if you have the S Pen and you're busy scrolling on it, because you actually can scroll and you can even draw, you can doodle on it if you like. It's the clarity that it presents.
Good.
Believe what you see and lay aside what you hear.
Believe what you see.
And lay aside
what you hear.
Yes.
Okay.
That is a proverb from the country of
Western Sahara.
Yes.
Engineer Patrick Simiyu Wambulwa is the chairperson of the Association of Consulting Engineers of Kenya. He is our guest this time. Good morning, engineer.
Morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the hot seat of the Situation Room.
And thank you for inviting me.
Engineer, this one is going to be hot because it's a matter of life and death and investments and incomes and all. You are what engineer are you?
A civil engineer.
A civil engineer. What is this Association of Consulting Engineers?
The association brings together consulting or engineers who are practicing in consulting to speak together on issues that are common to the construction industry or infrastructure industry, if you would say.
So you're bringing together all engineers who are dealing with buildings of houses, dams, roads.
All engineers in all sectors.
Electrical.
Roads, electrical, mechanical, those who are in industry, provided they have their practices in consulting.
Okay. Yeah. So it's a voluntary membership association.
Yes.
What is the difference between the association and the engineers board?
The engineers board is a regulator. It regulates or accredits programs when they are at the university, and it guides the practice before you are a registered engineer, a professional engineer. So the board is a regulator. The association, the Consulting Engineers Association, is a membership. You would call it a business membership organization.
Nah, it's a BMO.
Yeah.
There used to be an Institute for Engineers.
The Institute for Engineers is still there, and I would call it a learned society. Yeah.
What is it?
It brings together all engineers in the country. You could be in the civil service, you could be in industry, you could be a contractor, you could be at the university or in consulting, but all engineers who are here, who are in Kenya, are open to be members of the Institution of Engineers of Kenya, and it is promoting the engineering discipline, so the knowledge and practice of engineering, and it's not focused at business, but the Association of Consulting Engineers is trying to promote the business, the business of consulting engineers.
So when you say an association for engineers, we're talking about the sub-disciplines, whether someone is a structural engineer, whether someone's an electrical engineer, they all belong to the same association.
Yes.
Whether you're an electronic engineer, you belong to this same association.
Yes, if you are practicing as a consulting engineer.
Whether you are a software engineer.
Yes.
All of you.
I haven't stopped yet. Whether you are a biomedical engineer.
Yes.
You want to show us how many engineers you know?
No, I'm actually, you see, as you were speaking, I was thinking about the many disciplines that have engineering as a tag to it.
Yes.
There are many disciplines.
Yes.
Even a social engineer.
Yes.
The Engineers Act or rules have tried to break that down. I think we are in excess of 20. But if you are in the developed countries like US, they are approaching almost 50, which are officially recognized and accredited in various universities.
Now, Engineer Simiyu, you have worked in local authorities.
Yes, I started my work at City Hall, City Engineers Department, Structural section.
What was your job?
My job was to check through structural engineering designs and recommend them before the city engineer could put his hand on to say they are approved for construction.
This means anybody who wants to put up a structure, whether it's a market, a commercial building, a residential building, has to apply to City Hall.
Yes.
And they have to bring in the design of what they want to put up.
Yes.
And it would land on Engineer Simiu's desk.
Yes.
For you to then look and then recommend for approval or rejection
yes.
to the city engineer.
Yes.
What is it that you were looking for?
I would say when it is in the structural engineering section, it is structural integrity. Yeah. But I would like to go to to say the approvals required, because it is not one approval.
There are several approvals.
Several approvals required before a person or a structure is put up.
Let us start from the beginning.
Yes.
City and I want to put up houses in a piece of rock somewhere.
Yes.
And we need to now go to City Hall to get approval.
Engineer,
where do we begin?
It's a plot of land. It's him who keeps referring to it as rock.
Yes.
There are a few pebbles here and there, but anyway.
So where you should begin is that you should talk to an architect. That is where you should begin. But for the local authority, and allow me to use that, local authority, because what we are talking about applies to all Kenya and not just Nairobi.
Yep.
So the local authority's first point of entry is the planning, spatial planning. That area has been planned for what function in the master plan of that local authority.
Okay.
So that means a local authority should have a master plan, a spatial master plan, putting zones for various uses, industry, schools, religious, residential houses, central business district. So there should be that spatial planning should come first and is guided by the Physical Planning Act.
Okay.
And we have physical planners.
Number two?
So number two is now your architect to take up your dream. What is the function of your building? And what aesthetics are you looking at? And what do you vision? So the architect translates your vision into a functional structure or a building.
Okay. Three.
When the architect is finished with you and you are satisfied, then you would like your structure to stand the test of time. So the engineer, the structural engineer, comes in now to make the design so that your building can be constructed and it can stand. There is a story without any offense to any religion of Jesus teaching that a wise builder put the house on a rock, and the winds came, the rains came, but it stood. So there should be something like a wise builder, where I do a proper engineering design that can withstand not just rain and storm, but to a reasonable extent, even earthquake.
Yeah. That's a structural engineer.
That's a structural engineer.
I was neglected to mention is the other person who was not so wise and what he built on.
Quicksand.
Yes.
Yes, now there is quicksand. And that could mean we have had rain. There was drought, and it was a crisis. Rain comes in for just a few days, and you have, I think we have had like 4 structures within a week, and they go under.
No.
Yeah. So it could be that those people, the design was poor, but it could be the rain.
Okay.
Where they put the structure, the ground may not have been investigated.
Okay. Now, does that process not need to take place as well? This investigation that you're talking about, so that I guess the person who came up with the phrase "come rain, come sunshine,"
Yes.
If you are to put up a building, that you have taken certain things into consideration, that it may be dry today, but if we are going to include the element or the possibility of rain or moisture in the future, this is then what we ought to do to mitigate. Now, it's not something specialist, it is fundamental principle, isn't it?
Yes, the work of a structural engineer includes site investigation, and there is a specialized discipline we call geotechnical engineer.
Okay.
So the structural engineer engages now a geotechnical engineer who is specialized in investigating the ground.
Okay.
And if it is even more complex, the geotechnical engineer will need to work with a geologist to describe that ground, not that you can't build there, but to inform the type of foundation.
But it is fundamental. Every time these papers, these people and their rock building, they want to go and get something like that done. This person is included in the process. So we're not talking about some specialized thing. It is standard practice?
Yes.
Okay.
And so should happen.
When they now come to the local authority, you said you start with this special planning department, and you've gotten your architect, your engineer, they've done the design, they've done the structural design. In the approval process, take us through it again.
So within the local authority, there is the approval for planning, to be sure, and the architectural
approval.
Because also what we should bear in mind, the architect is not concerned with your building only, but also takes care of the surrounding. So like the building where we are saying one building collapse on another building. Ideally, the architect should study the buildings that surround, so that when I'm designing this building, I am also taking care of the neighboring building. So after the plan will go through architectural approval, then structural approval. But we also have public health. It should be habitable, that a human being can live in that building. So there should be a public health approval.
What in the plan is going to be looked at by the public?
The public health is looking at ventilation.
Okay.
There should be ventilation. Lighting. Maybe there are safety issues.
Source of water.
Yes.
Or is that
that source of water, sanitation. Yeah.
All this is going into the public health.
It should be possible to bring water into the building and to take out the waste that is generated. What provision have you provided for fire?
Next
safety? Office? Then I have one. The next office, I think, is not in City Hall. It's the NEMA, the environmental, because this structure has an environmental impact. Yeah, so it should go through the NEMA approval.
Now, who oversees to make sure all of these processes have taken place? Like these things that you've told us need to happen, ventilation, etc., etc. There's somebody who comes in and makes sure that this building that you're erecting has 1, 2, 3, isn't it?
Yes.
So who plays the part of oversight to say, all right, this is the list, we've checked, because I assume that there will be a report.
Yes.
After all of this, then somebody has written a report.
The local authority has a committee.
Exactly.
The planning committee, which is supposed to be ultimate.
Yes.
I think the governor for Nairobi mentioned about dissolving one and creating another one. So that committee confirms that this particular plan has walked through
all the stages
of approval.
Without which you cannot lay a single brick.
You shouldn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And when they give the approval, the overall approval, it's when the developer should be free to start his construction.
Okay.
But I would like to say a structure or a building collapses because of structural integrity issues.
Okay.
But if we would like to have a scenario where no building is collapsing, then the issues that are involved are complex, are many, and each person should, or each sector or a department should try to play their role, including the media.
Oh, I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
But before...
and so I would like you, in this discussion, that we are broad.
Of course.
Can
absolutely. So
speak to all
under
issues.
what circumstances, taking integrity into consideration or not, under what circumstances would a building collapse? I'm sure there would be many. But a building that has reached X level.
Yes.
You said, fundamentally it would be an issue of structural integrity.
Yes.
Now, what would some of those issues be that a building that had reached nth floor then comes down?
Yes.
What would you say would be the problem?
Yeah.
Looking at it from this engineering point of view, what could have happened?
I would run down some of the things we have been talking about in Nairobi. Some people get a plan approved for 4 stories and they pass up a hill and they see a Chinese is building 9 floors and they say, okay, I will make mine 7. Now the extra 3 have not been subjected to the structure analysis and you have not tested whether the foundation will manage the extra 3. So there is that issue.
So this is without coming back to the structural engineer.
Yes, to correct it.
To correct it.
So there is that issue of change of design on site. While I'm constructing, I change the design. That is one.
And this isn't approved.
And that is not approved. And I think these are some of the developers who, when something goes wrong, they go underground because they also know there is something to hide.
That's one issue.
Yeah.
Another one?
There is issue of the foundation that you talked of inadequate investigation. Generally, people think that there is maram or rock in a given area, and you miss the fact that that rock in your particular place is left with 5 millimeter to a cave. So when you load the structure, then the remaining 5 millimeter you are on rock, yes, but it gives in
to the cave.
Yes. So that means we are talking of inadequate site investigation. So it shouldn't. People should not assume. Once you have a site, you should just investigate.
What I'm hearing you saying, engineer, is that in many of these instances, the professionals are not involved. Is that what I mean?
Yes, there is the inadequate use of professionals. Yeah.
The geo whatever guy. Geo who?
Geotechnical.
The geotechnical person
engineer. Yes.
Did not get adequate time or adequate briefing to go and do the work that they should have done.
Yes.
So that then the structural engineer can design a structure that
foundation
that will stand a 5-story building.
Yeah.
Which is what you got an approval for in City Hall.
Yeah.
Then you have gone and you've seen, Kamau is putting up 12.
Why can't I?
And maybe just put 7. Or there's high demand. People are but now people are asking. So you put up extra. When you put extra, you've not gone back to the engineer.
Yeah.
But engineer, at the construction site,
yes,
NCA laws regulations demand that you put a signboard that tells us all these people.
Yeah.
As far as I am concerned, I can see developer is so and so, architect is so and so, engineer is so and so, electrical is so and so. So where are they?
Yes. So we have some gaps in the industry.
When you say gaps, what do you mean, sir? When you say there are gaps, the word gap, what do you mean when you say there are gaps?
Something that is supposed to happen in a certain complete way, but at some point you lose track.
Do we lose track, or it's just not done? Is it possible for us to actually say it as it is? Because, when we started off this conversation...
The law does, it is not a must that the person who designs should be the one supervising the construction.
Okay.
So some people, developers, get their plan, proper engineer, proper architect, passed through the local authority. It is approved. When I come to construct, then I look for fundis and I stand there myself to supervise.
Yeah, this guy this guy has built many houses.
Yes. So the board will have all the engineers because they are there on the drawing they designed.
Right.
And they fulfill the requirement for approval.
Right.
But they are not supervising. And that brings us another area of causing for collapse is the ensuring the quality of materials and the workmanship.
These specialists, so go ahead.
Yes, like concrete, if I put in different amounts of water, I get different strength. Yeah. So I could buy the right quantity of cement, the right quantity of ballast and sand because it was specified for me. But if I miss on the quantity of water, I get a different strength. So workmanship and quality of materials come to play during supervision to give the quality of
engineer. What I'm wondering about is when you speak of this, it means this gap is something that is known and understood within the industry.
Yes, and it should be enforced.
Yes, but I'm going even. I'm talking about something beyond enforcement because the authorities that are supposed to enforce it are there. But why do these professionals let their names be lent to a process? Because something goes wrong, you will be looked for.
Now, my contract was for design. And this happens even for government. You are engaged and somebody says, I would like you to design for me. And since that is a complete stage, I have designed. So it is up to the next person to...
So essentially,
there should be a supervising...
There should be another contract for a supervisor.
So meaning if you, the designer, were to supervise, you need to get a separate contract.
For supervision.
Yeah. I see.
Let's take a break. I have 3 questions.
Yes.
I have 5, but...
You have 5.
And I will take them.
Engineer Patrick Simir Wambulwa is the chairperson of the Association of Consulting Engineers of Kenya. This is an association that brings in all the disciplines of engineering into one umbrella body where they look at their professional development, professional business and how the business should be managed and all. And you look at the welfare, right, of the industry, of the sector, of the players in the industry. We are talking about the collapsing buildings, not just in Nairobi and Kiambu, but across the country. The integrity of buildings that have been constructed, that are being constructed across the country, and what we need to do about that. 9:30, time for that quick break. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Congratulations. You've seen the hand of the Lord.
Thank you very much. I've earned another title today, this morning at SpiceFM. Mama Justice, I don't mind it.
Joel in Kericho.
Salama sana Heri, habari ya asubuhi.
Salama bwana, mambo namna gani?
Salama kabisa bro.
Mambo ya Inamoi kuliendaje?
Mambo ya Inamoi, vile nilikwambia ndugu yangu, alienda asubuhi na ile gari ya kwanza.
I must have missed it.
So did I.
Even if somebody was to render you irrelevant, there is still work you can do.
Okay, sawa.
I deserve to keep you accountable. You deserve to give me a report. You don't work for me. I don't work for you. You work for me.
Do you like that Freudian slip? Lovely, isn't it? Thank you very much.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Cloudy conditions in Nairobi. We'll see highs of 26 today. We'll also see highs of 25 in Nakuru, where it's cloudy at 16. We'll go to highs of 25 in Nyeri and highs of 26 in Eldoret. Cloudy conditions in Mombasa, but we'll just see highs of 29 and highs of 28 in Malindi today. We'll go to highs of 27 in Kisumu and highs of 26 in Kakamega. Looking into Kampala, we'll go to highs of 28, and Dar es Salaam will see highs of 29. Looking into Johannesburg, 26 will be the high, and Lagos will have highs of 32. 30 will be the high in Kinshasa today. Looking out into Beijing, it's really starting to drop in temperatures. Highs of 11 going into Monday evening. And out in Paris, highs of just 7 and highs of 9 in London. There's a freeze alert over New York. It's at 0 at this point. We'll see lows of -2 coming into Monday.
life.
All right, looking much better in most of these Nairobi streets. I think coming off the thicker superhighway today was a treat for most folks because you didn't get stuck in any traffic. So yay, Monday for you. Off of Kiambu Road, I am sorry. Thumbs down for that because it was quite messy and we're still dealing with the dregs of that. There's no escaping from this one. It's pretty messy and it's spilling over in some parts towards Limuru Road and then it gets into the CBD. Really slow traffic there. Mombasa Road had its bit of traffic today for the first time in a long time and has done very well to get rid of that. So well done, Mombasa Road. I don't know if it's the upper or the lower, but that's a whole different discussion. But getting into the city now will not be too difficult. All right, coming off Jogo Road was a bit messy as well. Landis Road is pretty sticky, getting towards Kamkunji, but that will open up and iron out in no time. Through the morning, talk to us about what's going on where you are with traffic. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Keep things moving this Monday.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
With engineer Patrick Simiyu Wambulua, chairperson of the Association of Consulting Engineers of Kenya. Engineer, you've told us through the approval process, there's a lay-down procedure to follow. And by the time you're going to seek approvals, you need to have the relevant experts on your side as you're seeking approval. And that's why, using the National Construction Authority regulations, when you put up that signboard there that indicates the project that is under development, it's a commercial building, it's a residential, it's a shopping mall, whatever it is. You'll also tell us who the developer is, you'll tell us who the engineers are, the architect, who's doing the electrical, who's doing all those things. Those will mostly be those that you used at design stage. Now, you also told us that if someone comes to you and they are seeking your services, they'll give you the design contract. They should come back and give you the supervision contract. Mm-hmm. If they don't give you the supervision contract and you let them go and you know that they're going to put your name on that signboard, are you not exposing yourself? As a member of a professional association, have you people discussed this?
Yes, we have discussed this, and I would like to, maybe it should have been my first point, to say pole to those who have lost their lives and their properties through this collapse. We feel it, and it is a scenario that we would like as engineers to work towards such events not happening. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is true, and we have discussed about it. And these are some of the gaps that I was mentioning. NCA does not approve drawings for development. It does register contractors. Yes. So it has a process to certify and say this is a qualified contractor. And then that contractor is under obligation to register that they are doing a project so that they are known. Mm-hmm. Equally, they should register their supervisors. At the point of registration, there is no notification to the professionals who are involved, who are being registered, to know that I've been registered on a certain project. And so there has been discussion that it should be a digital. Once you put my name that I'm the one supervising,
I should be notified.
I should be notified by email and maybe phone through a WhatsApp, a message coming on my phone that so-and-so has registered you as the supervisor of this project. So that digitized platform, I think, is under preparation, but it has not become effective. So that then I say, yes, it is true I am in, or no, I am not there. So that's an issue.
So that's one gap.
Yes, that's one gap.
And the gap here, as I'm hearing you say, is that there are some contractors who put names of supervisors without the supervisor's knowledge.
Knowledge.
Okay, tuendelee.
Yeah. Then, where I feel, because when you have a problem, you should say, then where do I start solving this problem?
Yes.
NCA and some local authorities have already marked buildings to say this building are at risk.
Yes.
So I think the most immediate, which of course brings in even the security people, we need to evacuate those buildings. So that if anybody is now living in a suspicious building, those buildings should be evacuated. So that at worst, we can lose the building if it comes down, but let's not lose our life. Yeah. So evacuation, I think, is one very urgent for those suspected buildings.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, sorry, go ahead.
Yes. I feel we had a new constitutional dispensation in 2010. That constitution killed municipal councils.
Yes.
Yeah. We went to county governments, but county governments are meant to create municipal, what are being called municipal boards, or create a local government, devolved units within their counties.
Towns and municipalities.
Yes. And in the mix of the challenge of maybe power and resources, these have not been established. And I feel you need the local authority. What does it help? After the approvals by the planning committee, the one that is being created, the new one here, then there was a building inspection section within the local authority. And I'm talking about City Hall where I worked. Their focus was to inspect buildings at different stages. So they would link up with the developer and know when you lay your foundation, they come to check that it is actually according to the design that you have. And there was agreed, because you would have your own supervisors, but their check would be just sufficient to confirm that you are adhering to the building, to the plan. So if you had 4 floors, you could not go to 5 floors. But now that you don't have these municipalities, then you don't have the building inspection unit, and the county government at its headquarters has no capacity, neither does NCA have capacity to check that everybody is adhering to the plan they gave. We are reacting to when there is a complaint. I am living in a building with cracks, then the NCA comes to check. So those are the gaps that need to be sorted. I feel our country urgently and seriously needs to do true bottom-up, where we implement the municipalities so that you bring
that supervision closer.
Yes, you bring because I'm an engineer, so allow me to talk only about municipal engineer, so that you have a municipal engineer close to the people to support their work when they are building.
But right now, even without the municipal engineers present and the towns also active, we still have inspection by the local authorities, by the counties.
They are not adequately resourced.
So they are not enough in number.
Yes, the numbers. Some county governments do not have professional engineers. They have graduate engineers in the sense that they have a degree, but they have not gone through adequate training to take professional responsibility. And professional responsibility means when I say I have approved, it can't collapse.
And that's how serious this thing is that we're talking about, right? That once you put your rubber stamp in terms of an authority behind something like this, essentially means that a multiple-story building will not come crashing down because I have said it has passed the mark in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Except under very extreme.
Like an earthquake.
And above a certain scale.
Right.
A certain, that sweeps everything.
But what we have now, unfortunately, is that the NCA is called in when you've already registered an issue.
Yes.
Is it possible for the NCA to come in at these stages where all these things are happening?
I do not recommend. because it should be, and what we should promote is local government. We developed because we were in a centralized system. NCA is a centralized organization. It should deal with those registration of professionals so that it is national. If I'm registered within the NCA, I can go to Mombasa, I can go to Mandera.
Sure.
So that function should be national. So NCA should deal with the registration of the construction personnel and the registration of contractors and the setting of standards, the building code. For construction.
And then the local authority to deal
development control to approve a plan, to check that whoever is developing is according to the plan. This function is best practiced as a local authority function.
Okay.
So NCA should have the, the respect to stop at a certain point and build
others,
capacity in the local authority.
In short, they should evolve.
They should evolve.
No, should remain
It should remain
Remain
NCA as a centralized and national,
And
but
then other people should
development
just do their
control
should be the county.
should be local government function.
Engineer, do I hear you to be saying that
and that local government, we have not invested in it.
Okay. But again, let me just ask the question. Do I hear you to be saying that approvals for a building are given by the county government?
Yes.
And yet this same county government that gives approval doesn't have a structure or units that can actually supervise what they are giving approval for?
Yes, in terms of numbers of people and attention to...
What about, do they have, for instance, in the local authority system, you did have municipal engineers.
Yes.
You did have valuers. All these professionals that have to do with the industry existed.
Yes.
Are you saying that they don't exist in the county?
I would say not in adequate numbers, because the municipal engineer had people called works officers.
Yes.
These were people trained to diploma level. They were technicians. And their training was adequate to ensure that every drawing that is approved, when you construct, you keep to it.
They were technicians, but they were trained in the distinctive disciplines that existed.
Yes.
The architectural department had these people.
Yes.
All of them.
So that's why I said there are many gaps. The technical training colleges are still training people and putting them
into the job market.
When they come into the job market, they don't get employment quickly. So they become hustlers. And they become innovative. I sell clothes, I make a living. So they are not practicing their discipline. Now, the county government is constrained financially. So they are not employing the numbers. So the discipline of the traditions of the discipline are getting lost.
Right.
You know, the issue of...
And these are gaps, and that's why the counties are not able to check that
adequately
that the plan I approved is the one you are following.
Actually...
are not able.
No. I feel there's a gap here.
Yes, there are gaps.
There are gaps, but the gap here is this,
Yes.
Counties benefit when these buildings are put up, do they not?
Yes,
in more
they
ways
do.
than one.
Yes, they
okay?
do. Yes,
in terms of revenue,
and the businesses that
Yes.
come to...
And as a local government, I mean as a county government, the employment factor also plays a very, very important role in all these things, okay? People get paid. So essentially, when buildings come up and there's a multiplicity of them, you're talking about money in circulation increasing. Is that not so?
That's true.
The direct benefit exists.
That's true.
You're telling me that when something has such a direct benefit, they do not take the time and care under the guise of there not being enough money to employ people, not to have the sufficient wherewithal so that this particular sector is well catered for.
And it is within their best interest.
Yes. I don't understand.
Yes. Now, I think if you read the Auditor General's report or the budget controller, the counties do not generate their own revenue adequately.
Actually, they do. It's just they don't report as such.
So maybe they don't report as such.
No, they don't. If you can explain the number of people who work for literally every county in this country who don't own a factory, don't own a shop, and yet they're multimillionaires, where do you think the money comes from?
Yes, that is also a gap. Because there's the dimensions of corruption.
Yes.
Yeah.
Corruption and
where people are given, the developer flouts, but is depending on, I will give somebody something to get my project done.
Yes.
But where the county is challenged, their total budget, of course, is constrained, but also it is not released on time.
Okay.
So the officers don't leave their office. They would rather do something.
They sit in the office. So enforcement basically is not happening.
Yes.
As it should.
So you see, when there is a structure failure, you have, of course, my institution of engineers running there, the engineers board running there, the NCA running there, the county government running there, and the government has a department called Building Inspection Units. The national government under the Public Works, they also run there. So I have these 5 agencies running in because there is a problem. But I'm not focusing my resources to put this responsibility of inspection and availing resources adequately for one agency to manage that process. Now, that one agency is what I'm saying is the local authority. So you need a level below the county government called municipality. And I said I talk about engineer only. I talk about municipal engineer only because I'm in engineering. And I put a municipal engineer there.
With enough technicians.
Yes, with enough engineers, technicians, and technologists. Because when I go into the area of material testing, then I've gone into technologists. So that now they can deliver the function. And it is not only about buildings collapses, but also providing the necessary services. That
many of these buildings that come down, engineer, they are coming down in fairly urban areas.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And after a building has collapsed, you will hear, for example, there were inspectors who had come here, they had condemned this building, they had said this and the other, but the contractor and the developer continued with the work that they were doing. So it's not for a lack of supervision.
In that case, we have crossed the line into the area of, complying or issues of following the law.
Yes. And that's why I'm
heading impunity.
That's where I'm heading to.
Yes.
So even if you had this municipal engineer with his engineers and his inspectors going round, if the issue is that you are easily corruptible, then they will still be easily corruptible.
Yes.
How do we deal with that? How do you, as professionals, actually distance yourself from this corruption? Because it comes back down to there's somebody who was influenced to look the other way. And it goes beyond the developer just being influenced to look the other way.
So we all need to interrogate these issues. I may not be the one competent to answer, but one of the reasons I feel for the municipal engineering discipline, in the old Local Government Act, the municipal engineer, it was written in the law, passed by Parliament. If anybody was forcing him to go against, he was allowed to register his decision and distance himself. Now, today, those people who are working for local authorities, do they have a law under which they can register their decision? So we need to broaden. So there would be issues of registering a decision that I do not agree, or I can't approve this plan, or if I condemn a building and there's no action, then it should be possible to sue that person.
Sure.
To take them to court the following day, and therefore you need the police to come in to help you to arrest the person. And produce him in court.
Speaking of which, looking at historically, let's just even take the last 18 months, because I mean we wouldn't have to look very far to see the number of buildings that have come down since last year January, for example, and until now. Historical is even Friday.
Yes.
Historical is 2 hours ago.
Yes.
What has
one
been
of today?
Sure. What has been done in terms of repercussions, consequences for these buildings that have come down where people have lost their lives, people have lost their businesses, the developers themselves have lost their investment?
Yes.
Who has ever been brought to, from your understanding, who has ever been brought to book that somebody is in the docks for having to explain the reason as to why a building came down and people died, murder, people lost their business, theft, people decided to make a decision when they shouldn't have, corruption and impunity? I mean, the rap sheet is very long.
Yes.
What has ever happened? Who has ever, for example, had to pay the consequences of these building collapses that we've seen?
None comes to mind, but I think what happens is that the process takes long. They, as a first action, they normally appear in court.
It begins.
Yeah. But along the way,
something happens.
It gets lost. Yeah.
And in the meantime, another building.
And in the meantime, another building collapses.
You know, one has to.
How do you call? It should not be hopeless, because the best, they say what, the prevention is better than cure.
There is no prevention.
So the prevention is, if the developers can have the culture of the wise builder and say, I would like to follow a process to safeguard my investment.
Sure.
Yeah. And I think that is the area that has a lot of scope for many to participate, including the media. I was thinking awareness. Of course, what we are doing here is also creating awareness. So there is the need to have programs that increase awareness for developers, so that they are wise developers and they are not doing things that collapse.
Right, because a developer can have this wonderful idea in mind, right? And want to put up the swanky new establishment, and maybe doesn't know a thing or three about all this structural design.
And they also need to differentiate the value of the different professionals. What does an architect do for me?
And they're allowed to ask these questions.
Yes, what does a planner do for me? What does a structural engineer do for me? Will I need a geotechnical engineer or not? What does a mechanical engineer, what does an electrical engineer?
The developer can go to their team of experts, regardless of who it is, and demand for 1, 2, 3. Even if they're just looking at the safety or the structural integrity of this building, they can actually go to this team of people and say, I want to see that due diligence has actually been done, and what has been demanded of us has actually been followed through.
So that teamwork, that teamwork to know that I will be part of a team and different people contribute different things. All of us, as architect engineers, we are taught that, so that I know when I go into something, it is not me.
There's somebody else.
Yes. So our developers should not approach engineers like me when they want to build. They should approach, their entry point should be an architect, because he's picking your dream and helping you to translate it to be. Then the rest of us come in to support that, actualizing the dream. And the engineer is meant to safeguard that it will not collapse. Except
apart from this proposal,
except we have the risk of climate change coming, except in extreme situations of earthquake or extreme weather conditions. But in normal circumstances, it should not.
A building that has been passed by a competent engineer should stand.
And constructed according to that specification
should stand.
Should stand.
And that's the thing, constructed according to the specification.
Consider, Eric, the number of buildings that are older than this building that we are speaking of, who've been there, which have been there since the previous century.
Yes.
And they've weathered storms, El Nino, El Nina, everything. And they're still standing. So how then do you explain these new buildings? They're not inventing tall buildings.
No, they're not.
Yes, and I think they are not the tallest buildings.
No, they are not.
So
The tallest.
it is the gaps during the construction.
Yes,
most likely.
Engineer, you've highlighted very many gaps, and we thank you very much for coming. And like you've said, yes, we would like to create more and more awareness on the issues that you've raised. So welcome again and again. When we call you again, please come.
Thank you very much.
Engineer Patrick Simiyu Wambulwa is the chairman of the Association of Consulting Engineers of Kenya. We've been talking about the building collapses across the country and what needs to be done to make sure that we have put an end to this. He has given us very many solutions. One, the most important one is let's devolve this whole issue, give that responsibility to the county governments and let the county governments further devolve according to the law by creating towns and municipalities and ensuring that those ones work. Hiya. Thank you very much for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation. See you again tomorrow morning. Have a lovely day. It's now 10 a.m.
Spice up your life